I'm a nerd.
Nerds.
Nerds.
Nerds!
I'm not kissing a nerd.
What is a nerd?
Nerd! Holy crap, are we nerdy?
Just kidding.
All right, welcome, Nerdables, to episode 129. This week, we are going to get to our WonderCon wrap-up that we missed last week because a lot of people were missing in action. We're going to talk a little bit about the rebirth of DC Comics. And we may talk a little bit about Batman, Superman, at least where their numbers are at right now. So, everybody got to go to WonderCon at least one day, right?
Yes.
Yep. Nope. Oh, wait, yes.
You went 3 days, so.
Yeah, I don't remember most of it.
That's right, because you're back.
I was in a lot of different types of pain medication and nerve blockers and
Jeez, Chris, you really need to wean yourself off
Ouchie medicine?
Ouchie medicine.
My goodness, just taking those and you don't have any pain and you're taking all that pain
Yeah.
medication.
Oh, you weren't
Come
there.
on,
So
Chris.
the last day, the day that you guys showed up for like an hour or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, whatever.
When you disappeared, we all met up or whatever, and you disappeared, and we're trying to find you because everyone else wanted to leave. So I said, you must be up by the image booth. So I walked over to the image booth. Turn that corner, I look over, or Skybound booth, and I look, and I'm like, no, Ethan's not here. As I walked back, this woman, she didn't mean to. She was trying to get out of the way of somebody else. And slammed into my left side. So my left shoulder's all screwed up. I have a pinched nerve, and then all the muscles are pulling, and it's just death. Anyway, she hit my left side, and it just like my head goes to the sky. I've got my mouth closed. You know that.
Beth and I stopped in full motion. And just
she kind of looked at me, and I kind of looked at her like, it's okay. It's not a big deal. And after a few minutes, I think Beth asked me, she's like, you okay? I'm trying not to let out the loudest curse word I've ever uttered in my life. I was going to scream the F word. Oh, Sunday was bad.
Yeah.
It was like
Yeah,
Saturday I made it through Rebirth without too much of a problem in terms of the panel. But I went to the Star Trek 50 panel. The Star Trek 50 panel was a huge disappointment because there's supposed to be 6 people on the panel and 4 of them were sick. So they didn't show up.
Who did show up?
I don't remember their names.
Was it Michael and
there were a couple red shirts.
No, those were the people that were missing. It was the people that were supposed to do that like run this whole thing. You know, they got all this stuff. Basically, they cleaned out what Roddenberry's office or whatever, and they had memos and pictures.
They recently recovered the hard drive from one of his computers from the time. He was typing out a lot of Star Trek scripts, like around Next Generation.
Yeah, so this was all. That was like all the stuff they were presenting. I guess they're doing like a piece a day on Instagram. If you look up Star Trek 50 on Instagram, I think you can find their Instagram. And every day they're showing you a piece of memorabilia. Anyway, those 2 people were there. I made it through about a third of it. And everyone was giving me weird looks because they kept squirming as I was trying to find a spot that was pain-free. And I was like, screw it. I had to get up and leave. So, But yeah. I don't remember a lot of WonderCon. I'm looking, as I'm through the week, as I'm kind of finally able to sort of put stuff away. I bought that. I forgot about that. Oh yeah, I bought that too. that was one of those days. That was good times.
So, WonderCon's been in Anaheim for the last 3 years.
4 years. Isn't it? Isn't there 4? Wasn't there 4 shows in Anaheim? Or was it only 3?
3 because we went. The first one we ever went to was the 25th anniversary, and this was the 50th. This was the 30th.
Wow.
Wow. We've been going.
We've been going for a while now.
Well,
This was the
25,
30th, so that'd be 6, I guess, if you really
6, 7, 8, 9.
Yeah,
So it'd be 4 years in
yeah.
Anaheim.
4 years in Anaheim, 1 year here. So, did it have the same feel to it to you?
Nope.
None at all.
No.
What I heard from a lot of on Monday, as the bloggers and everybody started to come out with their reactions, in addition to what I was asking people, because I was asking a lot of the artists that we kind of know through Artist Alley, like Jay Salvador and the guys from NinjaBot and stuff like that. It was totally a different feel, and it had to feel different because it wasn't Anaheim.
Correct.
But the specific thing that I heard, the specific opinion I heard from them is it's not the same people that showed up because it was such a different vibe.
Did it feel
for that
more like
show.
Kamikaze, which is in the same building?
That you can't help but compare it to Kamikaze. It felt like Kamikaze to me because, for me, good thing nobody listens to this show because I'll get in trouble for it. But to me, LA shows are cosplay shows.
Yes.
It's a huge number of cosplayers. It's a huge number of cosplayers, more so than in other shows that you see of that size in terms of proportion. And we'll get into why it got even worse because
everybody's trying to get famous. That's why.
it's not even trying to get famous. It's just that's the LA vibe. That's the LA scene to me.
It's also a larger city too, and you're going to have a higher concentration, especially something like LA. You're going to have a lot of concentration of cosplayers versus smaller areas.
But you also have the grand foyer and right there where everybody can gather.
Well, we'll get to that different. But in terms of people who actually had badges that could get into the show, and that's a tease for one of the problems that you'll hear in a little bit, is there's still a huge number of cosplayers proportionally than other shows. And it's not like Anaheim's in, Podunk, Idaho. It's Orange County's pretty
well,
damn
Anaheim
big.
has. I mean, it just the reason that you don't notice as much is because they're outside.
It's not that at all. It's just that the true proportion of people who have badges who are walking the floor, more of them seem to be in costume at an LA show than they do
Yeah.
in the other shows that we see. Not because of where they are, but just the fact that that's what it is.
Because it's funny.
And as people have kind of pointed out, nobody's done any hard numbers on it because it's impossible to do, but vendors that I've spoken to have said heavy cosplay shows mean less money because cosplayers don't spend money.
Right.
Versus someone like us who go for panels, go for signings, go to meet people, but also we're there to actually look for product.
Oh, I can tell you right now from cosplaying myself, when you are in costume, it's impossible.
Yeah.
I mean, it's literally impossible to go through a booth of death and try to find something or go to the vendors and do something because as soon as you start doing something, immediately people want to take your picture.
Yep.
And it was a funny thing
Well,
you
it's
say about
also-
cosplayers.
We
that-
have and I don't know if it's so much cosplay heavy shows, but I mean just in general. Well, no, cosplay heavy is the perfect word to describe it. But I was trying to think. It's sort of like that divide, like at San Diego Comic-Con, where a lot of cosplayers tend to have booths as well, and they were positioning them in Artist Alley a couple of years ago. It was a huge.
Tend to have boobs? What?
It is
That too.
That too. But but there was a
Boobs.
huge sort of spat between the artists trying to make money and then the cosplayers being put right next to them.
We also noticed those big name cosplayers don't get booths anymore. I mean, Kamikaze the last couple of years has had one or two, but I remember the Kamikaze, this was second year or third year. The year I basically went by myself.
right.
There was 7 or 8 big cosplayers who had their own
But
booths.
now most of those big
Now-
name cosplayers are getting.
they're
becoming.
they're attaching to another booth,
Right.
or they know through their Instagram feed, just show up.
yes.
I'm walking up 1600. Come find me and take pictures with me and
Right.
stuff like that. And they'll have people that are selling prints.
They
or
get
whatever
bought out
offhand.
by people wanting them to show make an appearance.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Vegas with a celebrity or something.
Right.
Well, it was
Hey,
like you
be
were
at our
saying-
party so that way everybody knows that Yaya's going to be here. And if Yaya's here, everybody has to be here.
It was like Chris was saying.
Not after the release of her shoddy fabric.
Every,
that everybody was
every
complaining
time I
about.
hear Yaya, all I can think of is, what was that? We were driving home that one day, and it was just like, Yaya Han. If she does gardening work, she Yaya mows the lawn. It's just like, if she's a farmer, she's Yaya cleans out the barn. And we just kept going for like an hour. And it was amazing. So every time I hear her name.
Well,
I
weren't
know
you
it's
saying
tough.
like a year or two ago that you're saying you're talking to one of them, and they're talking about how expensive the booths are, and it's just
Yeah.
not profitable for
There's
them?
just no reason for them to do it
Yeah.
because it's so expensive versus what
They're
they
just
put
like
out.
breaking even with the amount of
So,
pictures
yeah,
that
It's
they're
like all the
selling.
models that came to San Diego. You don't see them anymore.
Yeah, because the booths just got too
Yeah.
expensive. So what you see now is you see a lot of booths who invite cosplayers to be a part of their booth.
Correct.
Especially in these big shows. You don't. Kamikaze is still apparently cheap enough that there was a number of cosplayers at Kamikaze who had their own booth, who had their own section.
Well, you see Long Beach is like that too.
Yeah, Long Beach has a few like that
They
too.
got the
but
rapping stormtrooper or whatever, the red one.
did he actually have a booth, or was he
He-
just hanging out in the
He
corner?
had his own booth.
Was it the
The
booth?
Adidas
The
Stormtrooper?
B-box stormtrooper.
Yeah, the Adidas Stormtrooper. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And he was
so,
at he was at this show, but
Or
he
the
had
B-boy.
His, he had
The
his-
B-boy.
Yeah, he just walks
stormtrooper.
around.
He just walked
Yeah.
around with his boombox this
Yeah.
year.
But there was a whole at Long Beach. There was a whole back corner that was just like all cosplayers.
Which is I mean,
Like there was a Doctor Who one and everything.
especially when you look at especially because of that situation that happened because of Comic-Con about 2 or 3 years ago, where it was like, oh, you'd have like Adam Hughes and J. Scott Campbell, and then you'd slowly move off into the more the sort of the farther back area, and then it'd be like, oh, but now you have Yaya Hunt right next to a guy who's maybe done 1 or 2 issues of a comic, trying to make a name for himself, and doesn't see any business. And there was that
See, I
huge.
never remember the cosplayers there. I always thought they were in like small press.
No, they were there.
What,
And
San
I remember-
Diego?
Yeah, it's San Diego.
I don't remember seeing any cosplayers in
Yeah,
the
I
Artist
don't remember
Alley.
either. Because like last year, the 1 or 2 cosplayers that were there, they were in odd spots. Like Nicole Marie Jean was towards the front, up by like where the Weta booth was and stuff like that. So I
Thank
think
you.
she was attached to something else. It's just an odd thing. Anyway, specifically to that show, to this show, as we continue to try and roll back and go back to WonderCon.
I
Right,
saw
but-
the
but-
definitely
But I do like
felt-
the idea of having like if you're gonna have if they want their own booths, I do like having the section that they do at Long Beach where like they have that like little that corner. They've got like the 2 or 3.
Yeah, so they do a
aisles
Long
for-
Beach.
I
They
would
have
almost
the whole
prefer
back
some
wall.
of these people to have their own booth because then that means that people, when they take a picture, are going to be off to the side.
But the thing is, these people are not who we're talking about.
Correct.
People who are quote unquote professional cosplayers are not who we're talking about.
Correct.
What we're talking about is the guy who spent 2 months on a Deadpool costume and wants 1,000 pictures taken of him.
Right.
And is going to walk through the rotunda, is going to walk through the foyer, and walk through the floor.
Mm-hmm.
One of our friends who was an artist, the guy who was really good Wolverine, the jeans and the
Oh,
A
yeah,
shirt,
yeah.
and he's got the metal claws. On Saturday, he was standing in front of one of the artists that I know. He's standing in front of his booth, cannot move as
Right.
people keep taking pictures.
Mhm.
That booth was blocked off for almost 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
As every time he tried to take a step, no, I want a picture with my kid. I want a picture with you. Get over there. Don't take a picture with. Take a picture. Take a. It wasn't until this person explained it to me. It wasn't until 10, 15 minutes later, just before he's going to say, "Hey, get the F out of my way," that a woman who's taking the picture says, "Hey, we should probably move."
Yeah.
So she made him move out of the front.
Well,
But that's the type of stuff that we're talking about. Is it is so much harder to get through a show when every aisle is blocked with
Well, it's not
cosplayers,
even just
with
a show.
amateur cosplayers who are getting their picture taken or taking pictures with other cosplayers.
Right.
That's that other dynamic is, oh, can I get a picture with you? Yes. Okay, cool. I want a picture with you now.
And then
you go
everybody's
back.
got to get that picture.
And then everybody jumps in there,
yeah.
and takes pictures of both of them at the same time. So now you got 4 cosplayers who each one of them wants a picture with the other 3. So that's 5, but that's exponential pictures, and then everybody stops. And it's on the back row where you're just trying to get to the damn Funko booth so that they can tell you they're sold out of everything.
Yeah. Well, last year at Comic-Con, I got stopped on the pedestrian bridge when I was dressed as
I know,
Winter
we kept
Soldier.
going.
And at one point,
I think
it's
we were
like
trying to go to dinner.
people were like, "Can we get a picture? Can we get a picture?" And at one point, it was like both sides of the bridge were stopped, and I'm like, "Guys, if you want to take a picture, get over here." I'm like, I hate it when people stand there and do this. Don't block off these people.
Yeah, the thing is, people are
But
not.
most cosplayers won't do that.
They're
They'll
not
just stop
observant
where
of
they
the
are.
situation. They don't see that.
No,
Hey,
because
I'm in the
it's-
middle of this area, and maybe I should be the one that says, "Okay, guys, if you want a picture, let's move over this way
Right.
against the wall, where you guys can take as many pictures as you want with me."
I
instead of
walked
blocking
in
this area.
front of
But most
so
cosplayers don't do that.
Yeah.
many cameras.
Mm-hmm.
I can't even begin to tell you because it's just a point where I'm like, I'm not going to stand here for 40 minutes so that, Suicide Squad Harley and Bruce Timm Harley and New 52 Harley and Steampunk Harley can all take pictures together for
Right.
an hour. It's just, I'm done. I got to go.
Well, the funny thing was, though, Beth said this to me at first. She was like, "Wow, it doesn't seem like there's as many cosplayers this year." And this was on Friday, when we were walking through
Friday
the floor.
was very different than the rest of it, too.
But then you walk out into the foyer, and it's just massive. Like you're standing,
Well-
because you can you stand at the top of the stairs and look down, and it's just you
okay,
can't
so
walk
let's talk
around.
about the foyer and the thing. It got out very early
Yes,
that this year we have RFID badges for
Mhm.
WonderCon, and we'll talk.
we'll
about
get to that. Yeah,
We'll get to that. But the only checkpoints to make sure that you had a badge to go in were to get into the panels,
yes,
the floor that had all the panels in it, and the main floor.
correct.
The rest of the convention center was open to anyone who wanted to show up.
Yep.
Word got out very quickly on Friday. Come down, grab your costume, come down, and we're going to
Walk
hang
the
out in the
convention
foyer.
center. You don't need to be in the hall.
Exactly.
Just walk the convention center.
Go to the
floor.
convention center.
You'll
put
get
in
the feel of it.
Put yourself in the foyer. Well, it's in terms of exposure.
Right.
If you didn't get a badge,
Mm-hmm.
and you and I are cosplayers, I have a badge, I would have gotten there and called you and said, put on your Winter Soldier, get down here.
Yeah.
Let's just take pictures all in the because that's all they want is
Right.
to have pictures taken of them and take pictures of the cosplayers. So that foyer, that rotunda in the front, jam packed with people who didn't have a single badge. All the food trucks.
Yeah.
Did you notice on Saturday? Because I noticed it Sunday. Sunday when I got back, I dropped off all the stuff at the car. I come back. I'm headed to the Star Trek panel. I have to get something to eat. I jump into the food court, that crappy food court that's in the whatever the other entrance is.
Yeah.
The point, I sit down and I look up and realize no one there has a badge.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Not one single person until I got to the very back of the long seating area that I was in. That was the only other table that anyone had a badge.
Yeah.
Everybody there was not quote unquote supposed to be there.
They were there for the cosplay.
They were there to walk around for the cosplays and stuff like
Uh-huh.
that. So what Anaheim attempted to do last year, the turnstiles that everyone was kind of upset with,
Yes.
but that's what the turnstiles were for. Anaheim and the organization is telling you, if you don't have a badge, you don't get to take pictures at the fountain. You don't get to take
Right.
pictures at the fort. You don't get to take pictures under the WonderCon sign. You don't get to try and sneak in through the doors.
Right.
They're adding an extra level of security.
And I could
this
see
is-
them doing that next year.
They're totally going to do that next year. San Diego, you can't.
Right.
Because that long boulevard there, they're just never going to be able to do it.
Right. And
But at least, but where you really want to get to, there's still 2 layers of security.
And because with LA this time that they were trying to do something new, which was getting prepared for San Diego.
Yeah.
With the RFID.
They did not think of the logistics of it. And it's hard because, as we've stated a couple times, the LA Convention Center is crap.
Yes.
It's just
Well,
not
so
built for
sometimes-
this kind of con. So I don't think they looked at that floor plan. But I don't understand it because the guys at Kamikaze, they put guards at the door.
Right.
You know, they're sitting there at the outer doors going, you don't get in. So when you split it like that, I guess you can't. Because were there guys there when we went last year? Because last year at Kamikaze, they split the hallways. We didn't have to get we only got checked when
Because
we got into each one.
that
yeah.
foyer really wasn't being used because
Yeah,
of the
'cause, well, you gotta
the
keep
other
it in
convention.
one place. Yeah. Interesting. Anyway.
Well, sometimes I mean you don't notice these quote unquote problems until they
Oh, yeah.
happen. So they probably didn't even think about, hey, you know what? Maybe we should have put those RFID badges at the very front door instead of up the stairs.
They were
into the
more
hall.
worried. I think they were more worried about trying to get that down, and we have to get this badge situation done because we have Comic-Con coming up.
Well, that's
and
what
we're
I'm
already
saying.
planning on using these things, and if we don't have it ready and we don't have people trained on this, we're going to be screwed.
That's
It's
what
just-
I'm
since
saying.
we're talking about it,
Because I like
let's
the
move
idea
on
of
to the
them.
RFID badge thing since we're already talking about it. So this year, for the first time, the badges were given with an RFID chip.
I think it's the most amazing thing. I think it's the best thing that's ever happened to Comic-Con.
I don't know if it's the best thing that ever happened to Comic Con, but the funny thing is,
It's not the best thing to happen at Comic Con. It's the smartest thing.
yes,
There's
Yes.
a lot of bugs
because
to work out,
as we
but
were
it needs
as we
to
were
be done.
talking, what was it, the first day or the second day,
Mm-hmm.
and I started telling you, I bet you we're going to see RFID scanners in front of every panel,
Right.
and you kind of looked at me and went, "Yeah, you're right." And we kept talking about it, and I said, "Think of the info you can get
Uh-huh.
for specific people, the fraud prevention.
Yep.
You know, if you scan in 30 times but you never scan out, something's going on. You
Right.
know,
Or
someone's
if
walking out
you, or
with
if you
your
are
badge.
scanning in and out 30 times,
Exactly.
they can. And the great thing is because on Sunday, after we had our conversation, I think it was Saturday before or after the Rebirth panel,
It also-
Ethan and I sat down at the table with Beth, and we were sitting there. And 2 of the Comic-Con guys, a guy and a girl came up, and it just so happened to be the guy that's in charge of the whole RFID server thing, sat down with us. And Beth had mentioned something, and it sparked this conversation. And they were like, "Oh yeah, not only can they tell like what you were saying, Chris, with it'll be able to tell how many people
Track
actually go onto
demographics.
the floor, and how much we can start to expand outside of the convention
Yes.
center."
And the big thing that you've talked about for a couple of years is I think they'll really look at, in terms of San Diego, how many people are going to Hall H that never walk on the floor.
Right.
And if they can remove that number, whatever that number
Just
it
sell a
is.
Hall H badge.
Exactly.
That's exactly what I said
Whatever-
to him, and he said that is something that we're looking at.
Because when we first talked about it, I said that I didn't think it was practical without that information.
Right.
If they have a hard number where they're looking at it and going, okay, there's 25,000 people that never walk onto the sales floor. As of right now, you have to count all those people
Correct.
in terms of
Specific
for the
badges.
fire. No, you have to count them for the fire marshal.
Right.
The fire marshal says if you have 225,000 badges that are sold every single day, all of those people are quote unquote expected to be on the floor. That's how it's treated. If you can tell the fire marshal 50,000 people are in Hall H, they are not allowed to walk onto the floor.
Yep.
You have 50,000 more badges that you can sell.
Yes.
Yep.
So that information would be there. Someone like me,
It
they'd
prevents
look at,
fraud. You can't sneak badges out because if you I was talking to one of the door guys, and he was basically saying, like he's sort of enjoying the system. It keeps track of a lot of people because you can't sneak out a badge without scanning it.
correct.
Because if you pass the badge beyond the gates, if you scan in and then you throw that in your backpack and you don't scan out, you cannot scan back in.
Correct.
Right.
Because it
It
needs
still lists
Well,
you as
they-
on the floor.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. So it's perfect for tracking positions. And I know for me, it's one of those like for me, I love the idea like the Apple stores use a system called iBeacons, small Bluetooth emitters everywhere. So when you walk up to a table, it'll be like, you're at the iPad table. Let me bring up information on your phone. But it's a similar system where if this does well, you can branch out and then be able to track people as they move through the floor. What are the flow patterns?
Right. Well, one of the things
the
that they were
long
saying
floor.
is
I don't know how far they can get to that, but they could get to that.
They
The
do it-
couple
they do
of
it
things
for
that they've
public
already-
schools here in LA.
a couple of things that they already said that they can do with this is if they, with each individual badge, if you are saying let's going on the floor and floor, he uses it like 250 times.
Yeah.
They can send out a signal
To stop you.
and it'll put a red light up on there, and that person is no longer allowed to be admitted until they figure out what's going on.
Well,
Right.
it
The
alerts
other-
the attendant to check their ID
Correct,
Yeah,
and all
no,
that.
you can
check
stop
on it.
anyone because now, if you're at Comic-Con, you can't stop anybody walking in if they have a badge
Correct.
because the name on it doesn't mean anything or what
Right.
have you.
Even the little.
It's
the
also-
little-
Not Karen Sutherland.
Well, you'll also
You're a
can
male.
Now, you can now hit if you're a vendor and you apply and I want 10 badges, and you get 10 badges and you go through Comic-Con and only 6 of them get used. When you're a vendor the next year and you go, I want 10 badges, Comic-Con can now tell you, no, we're giving
Yep.
you 6.
you only use 6.
You only used 6 last year. What happened to the other 4? And you're like, well, I got extras trying to sell them or whatever they're trying to do. You can really figure out why they have all these badges and how many don't get used.
Oh, there's a.
Well,
There
the
are major
you can-
publishers
you can-
that have
you can
so
go,
many badges.
You can go far enough, and far enough that it's one of those things that would inconvenience a lot of people. But I would like to say, okay, you have a booth there. You got 4 badges. You're gonna have to scan into your booth every time in and out. You wanna work that day? Okay, you scan the badge in. Oh, good. We saw Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. You had all 4 of your employees at the booth. Then Sunday, only 1 person checked in. And your other 3 badges kept getting checked in and out of the regular sales floor, or you guys went into panels.
See, I wouldn't.
I can go you one better on that.
Well,
I can
hold
see it be
on,
used
hold
for
on, hold on.
exclusives.
You're
Well,
supposed
that's
to be working the floor,
But
not,
here's
not
the thing.
enjoying the show.
I don't think that's true though. If you're paying for your booth, and you have if the badges are yours, to me they're yours.
Right.
If you want to go enjoy the show, that's up to you as
It
the
is.
vendor. Like if I have a
You're
booth
paying
and
that
I
associate.
hired all of you, it's up to me whether I want you there or I give you Thursday off, I give you Friday off, I give you
Right.
Saturday off. That's up to me. What I want to know is how many badges are not getting used. I would look at it as how many badges aren't going to the booth and at least call for more information. Because if Rich owns the booth going down there, Beth and Arabella are going to go, but that doesn't mean they're going to work the booth. He's not going to go down there for 5
Right.
days without his wife and his child, but you're also not going to expect his wife and child to work the booth.
Right, but then
But here's the other
But
thing.
that gives you. But then that's one of the things. Like, okay, you have a booth, and you get 2 badges for the booth. But if you get guest passes,
But here's another thing that happens.
Because it's one of those things. Like one actor gets a booth and then gives his extra. Oh, these are my helpers, and then they never show up to help him at the booth. They're just his friends or family or
Right.
whatever.
Well,
that allows you to create different badge tiers. It allows you to stop people who have a booth from selling their badges to regular people too, because no, this badge was specifically for people working the show. You not once
It
checked into
encourages
your
more
booth.
information, but I don't think you can really force a vendor
Right, no,
once they have the badge. When you look at numbers, because I know talking to someone there, a friend of mine who was a coworker, they were talking about one of the publishers there. They have like 130 badges for WonderCon, and they said they use less than half of those.
right.
Because there's not enough. There's not enough people that could actually go. They just get badges after badges after badges.
Which happens with a lot of vendors at Comic-Con.
Mhm.
They
At
they
Comic-Con,
they
too.
buy all these badges, and then the vendors end up using them to be able to go back and get more
What
exclusives.
was it? I think somebody was talking about, like, I don't remember who it was. I think they were saying, like, Warner Brothers or something like that had ordered something on the order of 2,000 or 3,000 badges for their employees.
But that counts as a person on the floor then too.
That's what you would
So,
hope. That
can-
plays into the idea of, it's like, well, now we're actually going to be able to see. For me, I like the idea of number crunching and getting the data. How many people are using what? Where do they go? Where do
if
they
the,
walk?
if the information is used
How many
to
people
try
spend
and
time
get
in Artist Alley? How many people spend time in lines? Somebody who checks their badge into a line for the Hasbro booth and then checks out 4 hours later. I want to know why they were in line for 4 hours for a toy, and that allows you to then correct the line systems, enforce different rules.
it depends
that
on what
vendors
the
have to-
information is used for. That's the thing. Is everybody, the knee jerk reaction I heard from more than one person was, Big Brother is coming for you
Good.
thing. But
Especially at cons. Where
Well, they-
well,
they've
no, but
already
that's the
said-
thing is they're looking at this and going, I don't want anyone to have this much information and all that junk. If the information is used to improve the flow, one, improve the experience, two, and get more badges in hands of fans,
yes.
sold badges in hands of fans who want to go, then that information is being used for the right. If it's simply, we want your email so that we can send you more Marvel emails because you go to Marvel panels.
You already have
And
that
that's
crap
one of
with
the things that they
Facebook, though,
said
too.
when
Yeah.
I was talking to the guy with the server that does the servers. One of the things he said was, we can tell a studio, look, you had 3,000 people show up for your panel. Here's their emails. Now you can send them stuff because they're interested in your
And
product.
that's always something that, because of legal things, that you can opt in or out. They just provide a form on your badge purchase if you want to get information like that.
Going
But
to be all those people for My Little Pony that are going to get stuff for like.
right.
But see, here's
all that
the,
But
other
here's the
stuff.
thing. It's
but
like,
that's the
Well,
other
that's the
thing
thing.
is
What-
you'll be able to see now.
who goes, what are their ages, what are their demographics. There's a lot of interesting
Well, the
information.
hard thing with the panels is because you don't empty the rooms.
Correct.
Right.
So you're gonna get weird info. That's part of the problem.
Well,
is
no,
you
it's-
can't-
it's
when you
weird
get when
info,
you,
but
when you
it's
sit
good
there that
info.
year and go, hey, the Cup of Joe panel. Everyone was really interested. Joe Quesada. It was a full panel. No, Avatar was right after it. The
Right.
TV series.
But
and
they'll be able to
99%
see that.
of that.
But here's what they'll be able to see: is
But
if
you don't-
somebody goes in, like here, what always happens is for the My Little Pony or the Monster High panels, and I know this for a fact because we have to do it for my daughter. Whatever panel is before that. Last year it was Badlands before Monster High, right? So everybody comes into the room and it's all kids from Monster High, and the guys for Badlands are going, well,
what
hey, we know that you're not here for us, but maybe some of you will enjoy this. Then what happens is right after that My Little Pony or that Monster High panel, the room completely empties.
Right, but
they'll be able to tell, oh, wait a minute, that Badlands panel, no one came out of it afterwards.
But the important thing is when you get in. To really get that number, you have to know who's coming in for that specific panel, and you don't because everyone's coming in so early.
right.
Right.
That's
But then
the
you'll see that
problem.
they never leave.
It might
But
help.
but the ones that you see, but if you see something like Badlands and then Monster High's right after it, and the room completely empties
You
after
can-
Monster
there-
High.
There are ways to crunch the numbers where let's say this is what's the big like ballroom 20. So in the morning, let's say the room has a 5,000 people capacity, just a nice round number. So at 8 a.m., 5,000 people check in, and 2 hours later, 700 people check out. Okay, what panel did they check out of? What did they? So they waited for 3 hours through these panels to get to this one. Then they left, and then that does provide some because the room is going to slowly empty out by the end of it's sort of like
It does, but it's such an assumption.
it's like the human body where every 7 years you have new organs because of cell replacement. The idea is that like okay how so you sort of look at it in a way that's like okay, so if this room is a 5,000 capacity room, is it the same? It's going to be constantly at 5,000 capacity. How many people are going to stay there for 8 hours versus the room constantly being refilled for people who are going to go in?
And see, when you have something like that, though, because Game of Thrones is the last panel,
right.
so everybody stayed. And the problem with that then is you're assuming, well, everyone just showed up for Game of
Right,
Thrones.
but then when
who knows who showed up going, hey, I can't think of another show on TV.
yeah, but
that
when
would
but
be-
when but when
Walking
3,500
Dead.
people check out at 8 o'clock and that was the last panel, and those same 3,500 people were there at 8 in the morning, you know exactly what they were there for.
Right. You know one of what they were there for. The problem with it is you can't tell whether they were there for more than one thing.
Correct.
Right.
Like if Big Bang Theory's in there too, you may have I want to be there
Right,
on
there's
that
some
day because I
crossover.
want to go to Big Bang Theory and I want to stay for Game of Thrones. I say the information. There's some assumptions you can make.
The information that it will be able to give you is if you have a panel, let's say like one of the Star Wars panels, it's always in 7AB, right? The Star Wars panels are always in there, usually on Fridays, back to back,
Except
back
for
to
the
back.
Lucasfilm 50th thing.
Yeah, but what you'll be able to see is, wait a minute, we now had 1,500 people show up to a room that's 500, that's only holds 500 people. We may need to move this to a bigger room.
Right, and vice
oh wait,
versa.
this room that we had
Well, then-
scheduled for a bigger thing only had 600 people.
and
Let's
they were
move
in
it.
the 10
Well,
they were in the
you won't know
1,000
how many
room.
people show up for it unless you scan all the badges in line.
No, you would just scan them in and out of the room.
If you
really.
have it where you have
No,
your
but
line,
once you cap that room, what are you going to scan?
that's why you do it at your wherever you have your line, because you know how the way the line for 7AB goes, it goes around the hall and down. before you get to the door.
Yeah,
if
you
you
have
had
a
it where
mobile
you get
scanner,
into
and right
the
now
line,
you're talking
No,
about
you
the
could also,
scanner.
you could.
I could see mobile scanners instead of doing the standing ones. It'd
Well, you
be
gotta
cheaper.
remember, all this stuff is expensive.
The mobile scanners would be a lot cheaper because you could think about it. You
Well,
could
just
make an
have
app.
You just have one person standing at the entrance of the line and scanning every badge on their way into a line for a specific panel or a specific room. Too.
Because that way you make an app, you don't have to have the door things.
And
You-
there's-
and
there-
it just
there-
scans it every time.
There's a lot of.
But then
ways
you got to
do
have more
things.
people that'll scan it. That's the thing is.
They already have people watching the lines, anyways.
I'm
You
not
always
talking
have
about
somebody
hold
at
on,
a door,
stop,
in
stop,
and out.
Stop. I'm not talking about the lines. Yes, if you have someone at the door, that person has to get through and physically scan everybody. You need more people at the door versus the fact that for all of the entrances that were here, there was never more than 3 people standing there, and there's 6 or 7 scanners.
Right.
So the scanners help you actually reduce the number of personnel you need at the door.
That makes sense.
Because all that person doesn't have to keep moving and looking at badge.
But there's
all
only
that
one
person
entrance
has
to
to
the
do
door.
is stand and look at
A green or red
look
dot.
at the green or red dot, and when the red dot, the second person comes over and brings you out of line.
Yep.
Something's wrong with your
We're
badge.
taking you away, sir. No, please.
That's what I want to
It's
see.
the Comic-Con police.
They should dress them all as SWAT troopers.
John Smith
So
buys
Logan's Run
John
with
Smith
the-
buys 4-day badges every year and only uses one for one day. Guess what? John Smith ain't getting next year. You can't buy a 4-day badge anymore.
Okay, so we've
John
gone over
Smith,
a
1889.
We've gone over a lot of positives with this. What can you see from WonderCon to Comic-Con being the biggest negative?
Well, the biggest negative is the fact that the RFID badges for a lot of people didn't work.
Yes.
They've got to get the technology right because the help line to fix your badge was longer than any line to get a badge,
Right.
according to everybody I knew that had their badge
And
screwed
I'm-
up. Our friend Robert, his
He was in
badge
line
screwed
for
up the
like
first day,
The first day, yeah.
and it took him nearly an hour to fix his badge.
I'm willing to bet most of the error came from human error because they have to,
I believe
they,
so,
they
too.
have to scan the badge before they give it to you. I'm sure all it takes is that one person who's like, okay, here you go, and
That
just
forgets to scan
forgets
it.
to scan
It
it.
doesn't not paying attention. When you scan it, it gives you the green light. It's good to go. They're scanning it while they're grabbing
Something
the
else, they hear a
lanyard.
beep.
They're grabbing, and they don't hear it. Yeah, they're
Oh,
not.
and the beauty of that is they can see like, oh, this badge was never activated. You clearly have a valid purchase receipt.
Uh-huh.
Let me activate that for you.
Yeah.
But again, these are all. WonderCon was a trial run. When I got my San Diego Comic-Con badges, one of the first things they mentioned was that there is no badge pickup. You will be mailed your badge.
Yes.
And it was immediately like, I wonder if we're getting really nice badges this year. And then WonderCon rolls around and we're getting RFID badges. I'm pretty.
And the great thing is with these RFID badges is each one of them is individually coded. So
Oh,
it's
yeah.
not like somebody could take, because that was one of my first questions.
I
was,
want them to do like Costco, where they just print my little picture on that.
Well, no, because the first one, because at first I thought, well, if they're sending you these RFID badges and everything, what stops me from having an RFID scanner and making my own badge and making another one of these? But
then-
because they're all individually coded,
When the original
they
person,
will know
when
if
the
two
original
people.
person checks in,
Yeah.
the
Yep.
second person who spoofed a badge,
It's a multi-pass.
Here's the thing: is like, look, if you really wanted to steal badges, all you got to do is sit there with a sniffer and a backpack, buy one of the entrances, spoofing badges as they walk by you, picking up every person's name and information. And
No,
then-
it's
then
literally
you could clone a badge, but then their
It-
badges are useless because it's like. It's like, oh, but no, I swear, I'm this person.
It's literally the Fifth Element multipass.
The name isn't on the badge. I don't know who I am today.
It's people that have talked about it for ticket fraud for sporting events for years.
Yes.
That doesn't matter. All that matters is you have the first barcode.
Yes.
I can print the same ticket for all 6 of us, 5 of us, 6 of us, 5 of us. I can't count. I'm seeing double.
Hey, meds.
It's
Don't
the
worry.
meds.
You gotta include Amelia. The dog.
Oh yeah, Amelia Dog. So she's going to the event too.
6, yeah.
All that matters is the first person that shows up. That's why they started scanning tickets. That's all
Right.
it was for. I mean, I could photocopy Dodgers tickets in 1985 and get 6 people in off the same ticket.
Right.
But here, when you scan it the second time, they stop you and go, "It says that John Smith is already in here. Sorry,
Yeah, they
well,
do that
here,
for-
look,
they
here's
do
my
that.
idea. I'm John Smith.
it doesn't matter. It's
Oh,
already
wait,
been scanned."
Because here's the thing, though. Once that John Smith scans again, they're going to nab him.
Exactly.
Oh,
Well, that's
yeah,
what I'm saying.
it's like, well, that's the concerts have the same thing, and that's the way you fight it. Like, it's like says you already checked in. It's like, It's like, all right, well, here's my receipt.
Yeah.
Here's
because it's
my
also
ID.
in terms of taking it, also taken away like when it first started for sporting events.
John Smith A.
What you were afraid of is that scalpers were doing it because they don't
Right.
care whether you get in or not. All they care about is the money.
Right.
Right.
Once the information started getting out that everybody's getting their stuff scanned, scalpers have to have verified tickets or else there's no way.
Right.
Comic-Con, if I'm sitting here selling 4 badges, don't worry, guys. They're genuine badges. No, they're not. They can't be
because your
if they're
name's
just
not
a
on
paper
it.
badge. Sure,
blank.
if I if I laser printed a beautiful badge that looked exactly like my badge on Thursday and I sold it for $50, great. Here now, I can't do that
Yep.
because that person will know. Well, I'm still going.
Yeah.
Chris
I
went
sold
through
it to
5
somebody
times?
else, and when I sold it to somebody else, yeah, that guy goes in, and then you're
Wait,
doing
Chris is on the floor 5 different times. How's that possible?
multiple May.
Well, it's the same thing. It's like, oh, okay, well, clearly you're the correct person, but you're already checked in, and then let's say, all right, put a notice on this badge. It's like, oh, door B is where John Smith B has just exited. Who, then you
We
just-
need to find both of
just
them.
find 'em.
Yeah, in the case, basically, they
You know,
don't,
and
they
then
don't
when-
care if you're the original article. They're kicking you all out.
Right,
Oh, yeah.
when
Oh,
you-
yeah.
when
They're
you wa-
they're
when you
deactivating
walk-
the whole
when
badge.
that extra person walks out, they get the little red light. Grab that person, hold him for a moment. We'll be right there.
Yep.
This man has, stolen my badge.
Yeah, but there's got to be for you as the original person, there's got to be some kind of proof to know that person stole your badge and you weren't in converts with them.
I'm not even talking about stolen.
I
badges.
think it's not going to matter. It's zeroed policy.
No,
It's zero tolerance.
Comic-Con is basically going to say if you allowed your badge to get stolen, that's your fault.
Yeah.
Well, hell, I mean, like
here's
you
the
have
thing.
that email. You
Now,
you need to have that email. essentially.
As a guy who enjoys myself some tech, the reason why there was a big fear of credit cards, like credit and debit cards with RFID chips in them. You don't see them very much anymore. Things have slowly moved to you have the Apple Pay where there's a secure system, and RFID cannot just be sniffed off of your phone without your authorization, stuff like that. These the badges are not much more different than those original credit cards with those RFID badges where somebody could literally just sit in a mall with their sniffer in a backpack in a food court and get 100 or 200 credit cards.
You just bump into someone and get their
Yeah,
card.
and here's the thing. These badges are not more complicated. All it takes is the one guy with a fanny pack or a backpack just like, oh, I'm so sorry. Boom, you got that person's badge. All you got to do is clone that onto a new badge, and then you can get in. So
Here's what's
the
going to
thing
be
is, the
interesting,
badge-
though.
but the
badge
person
is-
is that person then cannot prove that they are the original badge holder without something like a receipt and ID.
Right. Here's what's going to be interesting, though.
Well, it's
is
also the
if
fact
this
it's going to be
happens,
hard to build those badges. I mean, it's not a cheap-looking badge.
They're not looking at the badge. As long as you can put that white card to the little dot
Well, I'm
on,
just saying,
on the entrance.
But if that dot doesn't match, when if they get stopped, if you get stopped,
somebody
and you get a red dot, and
if
that
somebody-
dot doesn't match up to whatever's on that,
well,
Well, yeah, if you get stopped with a red dot and it's clearly a forgery, then yes, you can
Yeah.
you can let that go
yeah.
and not just shut it down.
Yes, of course. That's what I'm talking about specifically. It's badge stealing is badge stealing in the age with RFID is very different than somebody with a laser printer. So
Yeah.
Is it easy? Sure. Is it something that is easy to get away with? No, not really. You'll be caught pretty quickly.
Yeah, and then that's the it's just it's not as easy to print that badge. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a ceramic piece.
Yeah, there's
So-
a lot of analytics to come from this, especially because recently, like the LAUSD put those RFID tags on kids to sort of figure out like how it's especially like for future architecture how they're going to build schools, how they're arranging classrooms and stuff, and then when they sort of release this large amount of metadata, you could be like, okay, how are the cliques formed? You can watch student 2347 how they move through the school throughout the entire day. And that's the thing that excites me for Comic-Con. Is
This student keeps getting swirlies in the bathroom.
yeah, exactly. He keeps going to the bathroom. Interesting, especially because there's no name tied to it. But if you're going to use that for traffic statistics on the show floor to see which aisles do people move through, okay,
It used to be the one where the G4 booth was. Don't
right,
go anywhere near it.
Exactly, and then you can go, okay, maybe there's maybe there's a better. Maybe you put all the big booths in one row or in four corners instead of you got Warner
You already
Brothers.
do. It was it's all the media ones that are in the middle.
Right, but no, you gotta spread them out further. You gotta
Well, that'd be the interesting thing is you can then play around with design and see if it helps.
right.
You're sitting here now. You already know without any of this sort of data. That middle of the floor where you put Marvel and DC,
and
Sideshow and Warner Brothers and Sony and Paramount always is just a complete clusterfuck.
Yeah, do not put them in the center. You got to start.
If you
spreading them
decide
out.
next year, we're going to spread all this shit out. We're going to put the big booths in the corners, and we're going to put all the little booths in the middle. You'll be able to quantifiably look at data going, it is much easier to get through
Right.
the sales floor.
You can put one big booth in the middle, and that keeps your flow. Because the last thing you want is people sort of staying away from the inner. You don't want people in the outer rim all the time too. But there are good ways to sort of look at that and go, okay,
Well, you already have that, though.
Yeah.
You already have people that that's all they do is just circle the media booths.
right,
Because all they want is the free handout
right.
shit.
But you're also going to make people say, okay, you put Warner Brothers in one corner. You can do something like, okay, we're going to put the big Marvel booth in the corner in the opposite side of the hall. You can throw Sideshow dead center. and you can create ways that will flow traffic back and forth between major booths instead of cluster them all in the dead
Look,
center.
you people in BBC. I've talked to them several times.
Heck,
BBC America.
You could put scanners. You could put RFID scanners in displays at these booths. Sideshow has those really nice sort of those tower displays. Somebody gets close to one of those things to look at a statue. Boom. That's all. It doesn't. It's not even for Sideshow's purposes, but for somebody to go like, oh, okay, this is how many people are looking at statues.
Contest would be a lot easier. Exclusives you could keep track of a lot easier.
Well, you're doing exclusives now by scanning badges. I mean, let's
To a
not-
degree.
Let's not forget they're already scanning badges for this type of stuff.
Does Ted the Scalper need a badge next year when we see that he stays
But see,
in the
here's the
same
thing.
Hasbro line 4 days in a row?
Wait, but
for
that's
8
just it.
hours
That's
a day?
exactly the point. What I was going to make is that you have these vendors that will buy 20, 30 different tickets for their people, and they will have somebody stand in line, and they will just keep handing them a new ticket.
Right, but you're still
Or a new
scanning
badge.
those badges.
Yeah, but
You can't get out
you
of the
can start
Hasbro
lim-
line without having your badge scanned.
you can start limiting that.
You can do that now. If you're
I think
now
it'll be a
going,
lot
if you're-
easier.
it makes no difference. Right now, I can look at, Toy Booth 1 got 30 badges.
Right.
I can look at Toy Booth 1's 30 badges. All 30 of them were scanned in the Hasbro line.
Yes.
So all 30 badges bought Hasbro exclusives. RFID badge makes no difference one way or the other. I already know that Toy Booth 1 has used 30 badges to pick up Hasbro exclusives.
But if when you go pick up your
I'm not even talking about. I'm talking about Ted the Scalper guy on the street who's going to head to eBay, not guy who's working at one of the toy booths.
But see, here's what I'm talking about: is if you go pick up your time ticket at Hasbro, right, and they scan your badge, then so that means that they know that you're going to go down and get in that line because that's when your time is.
Oh,
That
yeah,
means
well,
you can't stand there in that line.
I understand what he's
and
so-
somebody else come in there with their new badge, so
It's-
that way multiple people are going
Yeah,
off the same time piece.
It's not even getting a physical ticket anymore. You
But
cannot.
wait, how,
you cannot
what are you
even.
talking about? Because you have to have a...
I think
I've actually watched people
here's the-
stand
Hold on,
there.
stop. I'm trying to figure out Rich's point.
I've watched people stand there
Because they're
and-
not going to let you just hand 4 blank badges to them and tell you to scan these.
No. They take their badge. They'll have their badge, and when they have it scanned, or punch or however they're doing it at Hasbro, and then they don't leave that booth. They step back. Somebody hands them another one, and they do it again. I watched it happen 4 times last year.
He's talking about the paper inside the old
The
badges.
pa-
They'll be
yes.
exchanged with the other person. Like so, some like a,
You'll have you standing there, but somebody's
Okay,
giving
so
you
that
4
means,
badges.
that means that everybody at Hasbro should be fired. Because that's stupid.
It is very stupid, but I think what
And again,
I think what
how about I just hand them an RFID badge?
Riggs, no, exactly. That's I think what he was mentioning is that now when you get your RFID badge scanned at the Hasbro place for you want
When you go pick up your
here's
time card
here's your
sheet.
time to get in line 10 to 11.
They scan you.
You cannot enter that line before 10. You cannot enter that line after 11. You can only
You're never going to be able to do that because they can't get through the line in an hour.
No,
I'm just
not
throwing
the
out-
booth, not the booth. The line to get.
by
No,
an
what he
exclusive.
just said. If I get it, I have to be in line between. I have to show up after 10 before 11, right?
Yes.
That's just, I'm throwing
Okay,
out
hold
a
on.
hypothetical.
11 to 12. None of those people ever get in line between 11 and 12 because no one in the 10 to 11 is through the damn line. The line's too long. That time ticket is you can show up after 10. You
Sure.
can show up after 3.
When I got in line last year for our stuff, I've stood there and 20 people in front of me had tickets from the previous day that they were allowing to
Right.
be in line. Then there was a line behind me of people that. Hang on. No. I thought I heard him out there.
Doo-doo. The real question is how draconian are you going to get? That's not going to work.
See, it depends. I do totally agree that
Because-
like, there are ways to do it, but it's
Because there's also different factors. You're asking Hasbro to make. Comic-Con can only ask Hasbro to do so much.
well, you just put digital stanchion. You put those digital
It's up.
stanchion.
It's up to
entrances in front
Hasbro
of
what
their
they want to
lines.
do. If they're sitting there and saying that their employees are allowed to, you just pull 45 tickets out of your own badge, and go, I want 45 of everything, because I have all these badges, and they're allowing them to do that. That's
No.
Hasbro's decision.
That's not no. So not so much that you had the ticket, but what they were doing. I think what Rich was describing, which I understand having. So like you had the old white paper card inside the plastic badge holder, and people in line with an I went through. They would get back in line, and then they would exchange their white inner ticket, the white name card ticket that you get at the booth, with a clean one that hasn't been punched just because you're working at the toy booth who's reselling. And with an RFID badge, you get one badge scan. You are then allowed into the line with the green light. And then you can't circle back around because now you're going to have a red light. You should have bought what you needed to buy or what you
But if you're using a different badge, it doesn't matter. You're exchanging the RFID badge the same way you would exchange the badge that's already been scanned with the Q code.
Sure, but you would have to scan those badges in to buy an exclusive.
The badge
They
would
already
have the
do that.
same information though, so that's what I think. That's
They
what it's
already
saying.
do that. They scan your they scan your Q code. You're already exchanging badges, whether you're in line or not. If you're standing, what it seems to be describing is that you're standing in line while you're holding 4 badges. That's what he's talking about.
Oh, that's what he's talking about. No, that's on Hasbro for breaking the rules.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying, is that it's not going to change. If that's what Hasbro decides is okay, that's not going to change. If you have to walk out of line and get back in line with a fresh badge, even though it's the same person, who cares? That's the same thing that they're doing it. You're scanning 2 separate people. John Hasbro has no idea that Sebastian and Ethan, who now Ethan has given Sebastian his badge, they don't know that they're going to see you as Sebastian, they're going to see you as Ethan. They're never going to know the difference. Nobody there is going to sit there and go, weren't you just here an hour ago? And even if they did, I doubt anybody at Hasbro cares.
I don't think care. No.
Because Hasbro just wants to make
they want to
money.
make the
wanna sell
money.
out.
Yeah, that's the thing.
The fact that they actually hold stuff back for other days is the most altruistic thing they've ever done. Because they would sit there like, if we sold out of everything on Friday, then we sell out of everything on Friday. What the hell do we care?
Exactly.
You know, they're doing it because there would be a huge backlash. But all Hasbro cares about is walking out of San Diego with no product.
Yeah.
Okay, so the RFID badges are a good idea. I think it's going to help out Comic-Con. One of the other big things at WonderCon, and it was a WonderCon panel, but it was a pre-day panel.
It was a WonderCon panel, but it wasn't listed in their programming because the programming was printed early.
Correct. It was
I don't think they
obviously
wanted
talking
it to-
about DC Rebirth.
Yeah, DC Rebirth had their panel at 9 a.m. on Saturday. Well, it was supposed to be at 9 a.m. on Saturday. It started at 9:30. Because God forbid you should have anything show up on time. Yes, this was...
Hey, they gave out donuts in the shape of D's and C's.
Yeah, we already had donuts.
I know.
So mad at that point. I was like, dude,
Like we could have had free donuts
could have
instead of
free
paying
donuts?
Would you
Uh,
like
but
a
we got-
DC
hey,
donut
we got
that has
really
Well,
bad
hold
good
on.
donuts, though.
But
The
were you-
donuts we got were a lot better
Oh,
than
yeah.
those DC
Where the hell
ones.
did we go? What was the name of that place?
I forget.
You have to ask
Mike,
Donut
Mikey
Castle or
knows it.
something like
But
that?
they had bat sprinkles, man.
Yeah,
doesn't
but
matter.
mine had... What was the one I had? The Nutter Futter.
Yeah,
Nutter
yours had like
Fluffer
the peanut butter
and
marshmallow
it had
in the
a
middle.
light peanut butter glaze. Oh, God, that donut was fantastic. Oh, it was so good. Yeah, so the DC panel, 9 a.m. Saturday.
But
to
you already
reveal-
going in kind of jaded because standing in line, the gentleman
No, we're not going to talk about that.
standing behind us was
No,
quite
it says
loud.
nothing- jaded is nothing. That doesn't mean anything. No, I was excited to go to the panel because it was the reveal of some of the creative teams for their upcoming Rebirth titles.
Yeah.
A little more clarification on what Rebirth was,
Yes.
what it was going. You know what it was. A lot of Jeff. Thought it was very telling that Jeff spoke a lot, and Dan did not.
Jeff did. He pretty much.
This
was,
is Jeff's push. This is all, not all. This is Jeff John's idea. This was what he wanted to do.
I thought he was moving more towards the television side
He
of
is.
things.
Well, he's
This
the
is-
chief creative officer, but
Here's the story. It's from multiple sources that I'm not naming.
Sure.
When the TV slows down as they finish the seasons, Warner Brothers asked him to go back to DC and do something with the comic line. So he goes back
Smart.
to DC, and this is what he came up with. This is what he set up. So this whole endeavor comes from a creative talent rather than a corporate talent, which New 52 really felt like, and I think Sebastian has mentioned that more than once, was a corporate mandated relaunch of the line.
Correct.
Where this was, what corporate may have said, hey, we got to figure out how to boost our sales, but at least they turned to a creative person
And said, how
to
can we
say,
fix
how do
this?
we do this?
Yeah.
And Jeff's big thing that he's been talking about for a while is the legacy of DC Comics.
Mm-hmm.
What the New 52 lost was that history by trying to make all of their characters new, except for the ones that were popular that they didn't really change, yada, yada, yada. So that's the big push. It's not erasing the New 52. They mentioned that more than once.
Well, here you want me to read how they have it listed? They have it listed as the New 52 initiative in the New 52 initiative in May 2016 as its launching point. DC Rebirth is initiated to restore the DC universe to a form much like prior to Flashpoint storyline, while incorporating numerous elements of the New 52.
Yeah, the New 52 is not going away. As he described it, it's that the New 52 is a chapter in the legacy of DC Comics.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen that some of the characters that you got to know that are new in the New 52 are still there. The cover image that they showed for Teen Titans has Wally West as Flash, the African American Wally West as
correct.
Flash. That this is just something where it feels akin to Crisis, where they're going to meld worlds, pick and choose their pieces. When I was describing this and discussing this with other people at the shop, I said, this feels like what New 52 should have been.
Yes.
But they were afraid to do it because, well, we've done Crisis like 9 times. We don't want to do it again. For their mandate to have new number ones, that they felt like they had to change the entire universe. And as Marvel's proven with 3 line-wide launches in 5 years, you don't have to change your history.
Right.
You just have to number
Change
one
it to
is
0.
Yeah. So if they had done this with New 52, where they said, most of our titles are going to go to number 1. We're not touching action. We're not touching detective because we want to get to 1,000 issues.
You could have made some changes, but stay
that's what I'm
true
saying.
to your.
The big point in New 52 was that everything was number 1 and everything was new.
Right.
If they had, from what I've heard from Rebirth, to me, it sounds like what they should have done with New 52, and it would have been more successful after the first year of saying, we're tweaking some stuff. Batman's going to start over with the number 1. Superman's going to start over with number 1. We've got these new cool creators. We're not touching detective. We're not touching action in terms of numbering. We're going to tweak some histories, bring some new characters in, so on and so forth. The big push of odd titles that they were doing and stuff like that. And I think it would have been, after a year, it would have been a lot more successful because you also wouldn't have had people that just stopped DC altogether.
Well, here's the way Jeff Johns describes the 80-page one-shot as relaying the groundwork for DC's future while celebrating the past and the present.
Yes. It's his Rebirth titles, his Green Lantern Rebirth and Flash Rebirth were about reestablishing legacy for those original characters,
right,
while also establishing that Kyle Rayner and Wally West, respectively, for those characters, were still important. That their legacy as the heroes that took that mantle for so long was still intact. And that's the kind of mindset going in to Rebirth.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you mentioned the creative teams. Do you want to go through the list of what we're going to have?
There's a lot there. Just pick out some highlights.
Well, I mean, we can talk some of the big titles. Batman. We'll start with that. They started with the Batman group coming out. Tom King is taking over Batman. Artists are David Finch and Mikkel Janin. And that'll ship bi-weekly. That's another big thing. The big titles are switching to bi-weekly.
And the price is $2.99.
The price is $2.99. It was everything I had not to stand up when Dan DiDio said that and said, yeah, you tried that before, remember? That didn't work.
But even the 80-page one-shot...
Hold the line at $2.99 until Batman is now $4.99 3 months later.
But even the Rebirth 80 pages is going to be $2.99.
Yeah, but they've done that before.
Yeah.
I mean, the countdown special was like $1.
Right.
It was like 80 pages.
It was, but they also had, it was one of those things like hold the line at $2.99, asterisk, anything less than 22 pages. Anything more than 22
asterisk, anything Batman is
22 pages and up is
when they
$3.99.
when they decided to do, they took their 5 most popular titles and put in the backup stories to make them 30 pages or 25 pages.
To make them
and then they made them $3.99.
pages.
Like, well, that's not holding the line.
Right.
Anyway, so yes, everything will be $2.99, but you have titles that will ship twice monthly.
Correct.
So instead of $4 to get your Batman fix in a month, you're now spending $6.
Right.
But if it works, it works. I mean, one of the things that they've talked about is their belief, and some retailers have mentioned it, including my boss Card mentioned it, that Marvel's done this before. When they did when they did Marvel Now the first time, you got the first 6 issues of Avengers in less than
a month.
Oh yeah,
yeah, it was like 3 months.
Superior
2 months. Spider-Man did that sort of thing. So what the feeling is especially at the beginning, fans are like really desperate for that content, they're willing to come every 2 weeks
My
and pick up
question
your favorite title.
is, can the creators stick with that?
Well, this is why there's a rotating team. Each of these titles will have 2 artists. Like we said, David Finch and Mikhail Janin will do Batman. One will
Right.
do one issue, one will do the other. Or they're going to work consecutively, and then you'll have one drop, and then the next full story drop.
You're like,
I hope
every
that.
3 issues is David Finch. Every 3 issues is
See, I don't
Yeah.
mind it if they do it that way. My problem's going to be if they switch artists in the middle of a book or in the middle of an
Well,
issue.
that stuff you can't. I mean, it's like, yeah, I know that
Stuff in the middle of the issue means they weren't going to finish it
anyways.
anyway.
Right.
That's also
Um,
stuff that you can't. That happens so often.
I know, but
and-
it just it's when you're as
It's
a, as
annoying.
a
It's
reader
annoying, yeah.
it's all of a sudden when the art changes you're going,
That's
Yeah.
a
I'm
that's
completely
a,
taken
that's
out
a
of the
different
story.
beast than this. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter
Yeah.
whether it's bi-weekly
It was
or
like
not.
That's true.
It's like
If-
the first issue of Justice League, and there were some pages not done by Jim Lee at all, or
Yeah.
rough outlined by him, and then somebody went over, inked over. And
yeah,
then,
that's Jim's
I
not
think
going to finish an
one
issue.
of the new
That-
52 Batgirls or something did it, and like switched in the middle of it and then switched back, and it was like, whoa, what
There's
the hell?
oh god, was it the annual for? Oh no, it was the 0 issue for Batman.
Yeah.
That just jumps artists. I thought it was a whole different.
Oh yeah, I thought
It
that.
just- yeah, you
It was-
had, you
I
had
thought
Becky.
it was another short story.
Yeah, Becky Cloonan did the first like 18 pages.
Yes.
and the last 4 were somebody completely different.
I had
and
to
not
go
even
back
close.
over like the first couple pages or the
Flip
couple
back
pages
and
where it
forth.
switched because I thought, did I miss where the story arc
Yeah.
changed?
So James Tinian is taking over Detective. Tinian is one of Snyder's proteges. Eddie Barrows, Alvaro Martinez is doing the art. Again, twice monthly. We're getting Nightwing comes back with Tim Seeley still working on it. Going back to Dick Grayson, back in the blue. They made a big deal about
Yes.
the fact that Nightwing should wear a blue costume. None of this red crap.
I was very. It's one of those things too that the decision to make it red was one of those things. Like I remember the Nightmare of Batman and Robin. How did somebody's like, we're gonna give him a red Nightwing suit, and then somebody goes like, so it's the same costume from the Batman and Robin movie.
See, I don't mind the red and the black.
The thing- the
blue,
thing
the
with
blue and
the
black I
red-
get. It's more traditional. It's more him
The thing with the red in New 52 always smacked to me of just changing it because
For the sake
for
of
the
changing.
sake of changing it. Yeah,
look, it's a new number 1. He has a new costume. It's just red.
there was no
Yeah.
reason behind
He
it.
had the same
yeah.
story. It was just
The
red
same
now.
story. He had the same. He had this
Yeah.
really the same costume as he had the last time he went out as Nightwing, but now it was red.
Especially
Yeah.
when you know the story of the costume from Batman and Robin. How it was. It was originally going to be his Nightwing suit for the
Right.
movie. Then they changed the script, but they didn't have the budget to change the costume. So somebody went, just paint it red because he's Robin.
Yeah.
And like, oh okay.
But I think the most intriguing one, they did mention that Scott Snyder was not leaving the Batman family. He's doing All Star Batman,
Yes.
which will
That's
hopefully
Which
start
looks
August
really
2016.
good.
Which is it a quasi sequel to the other one, or
No,
is it just
it is
another
a
all-star
rotating
title?
piece. It's an all-star title. It's listed
Okay.
as an all-star. They've already announced John Romita Jr.,
Cool.
Jock, Sean Murphy, Paul Pope, Tula Lote, Afu Richardson, Francisco Francavilla, and more will be doing stories for the title. What it basically looks like to me is they're just telling Snyder, write whatever the hell you want, find whoever you want to draw it, and he can do whatever he wants with Batman
Yeah.
and not be beholden to a bigger
Bizarre
universe.
continuities.
That's
or-
what it
that's fine.
seemed like when they
Reminds me of
when they
that-
brought
And
it up.
it's a great. I mean, this is what Superman Batman was back in the day.
Yes.
Jeff Loeb writes it. Ed McGuinness draws it. Michael Turner draws it. Carlos Pacheco runs it. Raphael Albuquerque draws it. It was whatever story, and it wasn't super tied into continuity.
right.
Right.
It was allowing Jeff to
very
write
loose.
a good Superman Batman story and letting somebody draw it. That to me is what this feels like.
Yeah, it's got it that for sure, and then the Batman Black and Whites having all
Yeah,
those short stories.
That same idea. We get into the Superman family. Dan Jurgens returns to Superman.
Interesting.
He's Action Comics, and it is to note Action Comics and Detective Comics pick up their numbering
Yes.
Yes.
as if the 52 issues that all these titles will get to existed as
Correct.
well. And Carr mentioned this once. I think the best thing they can do is make a special limited edition box set of those issues with the original numbering.
Ooh.
Yes.
That would be really cool.
Just print it exactly as it looks, except that cover instead of
Just change the
number
numbers
one,
of
yeah,
one
it says
to
8, 7. Yeah, so now
Yeah.
you get your Detective 900. And it's just something that would be limited edition for collectors that are. Like,
No, that's a great idea.
that would be a great idea. Just something cool.
So they could have
people-
it. And it's one of the things is we working the shops long enough. You always have the one like when DC was doing or Marvel was doing those like point ones. People going, I don't want the point one. My numbering is all thrown off.
Yeah.
And I'm
What do
sure
you
there's
mean?
somebody's like,
Do I put this at the end? Do I put it between 15 and 16? What am I supposed to do?
I can't just put 1 through 52 in between 800. No,
Exactly.
No, I'm sorry.
It's going to be great for that kind of OCD.
Yes.
Yeah,
person.
that no, it's a great idea.
Yeah.
And for the internet to actually do an issue search. I want Detective Comics number 905 now.
So Dan Jurgens is writing Action Comics. Patrick.
I hope he
Zwicker,
presented
Tyler
that
Kirkham,
to Jeff.
Steven Segovia. Oh, he's talked about it with him. Pre-Flashpoint Superman existing alongside of Clark Kent, as well as Lex Luthor in his Superman armor. That actually looked kind of intriguing.
Yeah, it did.
That was weird because they were doing that the Superman and Lois Lane book as that mini, which was actually really good.
Yes.
Well, they've talking...
already started with this idea because Titans Hunt is very important because it's
they
the
were
current
they
Titans
were remembering
team is remembering pre-Flashpoint.
Right.
The pre-Flashpoint Superman is a part of the New 52 universe right now.
Right.
Has come in as well. So they've already kind of landed those little pieces, and I think that was a part of a test to see how many fans were going to go, "Oh my God, you can't do this," or how many are going, "Yes, this is what I wanted," and you can go through this.
Well, it seems even the story for the whole Lex Luthor Superman thing is kind of interesting, where Lex is believing that he is, the true Superman of Metropolis, and so, when they were explaining that seemed really interesting.
Superman becomes Peter Tomasi and Patrick Gleason.
Nice.
With Gleason and Mankey doing the flip arcs, but it's a monthly title, so it looks like Gleason will do a couple issues. Mankey will do the other. Tomasi and Gleason, Batman and Robin.
Yeah.
Great title.
Great. Back again.
Super excited for Superman. I think Tomasi is one of the underrated writers.
He's the one of the unsung heroes. He did a great job on Green Lantern Corps. Did a great job with the Batman books.
Wonder Woman. This one was big to me. Greg Rucka comes back.
Yeah,
that
was
right.
big.
Wonder Woman. He has written it before. It's the first time Rucka's worked.
The images they showed were pretty.
That was one of those
impressive.
I wonder what somebody what was the gift? What was the please come back?
Yeah, because as Rucka didn't leave DC.
Look, we got a Wonder
Great
Woman
terms.
movie coming out. We need to have a really good writer writing Wonder Woman.
Well, we got to remember Rucka didn't leave DC on great terms.
He did
not a
not.
lot
Right.
of not a lot
He
of
did
creative
not leave
people
on
when they
great
leave
terms.
DC.
Well,
leave
Oh
on
yeah,
great terms.
well that was part of that whole big ruckus.
We need somebody who can write Wonder Woman again.
Literally.
No
Well, I
one
know,
can
right?
understand
You like
Gal Gadot.
right.
Yeah, the thing with Rucka, I mean, Greg Rucka was one of the people that I point out in terms of the way that people were leaving the big two.
Right.
When he leaves DC,
That was a blow up too. 'cause
yeah,
it was
and
really
it never
sudden.
felt like he was going to go back.
Yes.
When he left Marvel because of the Punisher thing, the Punisher says, or Marvel goes to him and says, "We're putting Punisher on Thunderbolts." He says, "I don't really like that idea. I'm still writing Punisher, and I don't think he should be a part of a team." Well, we're going to make him part of a team, Greg. Okay. All right, we respect, but this is what we want to do. What do you? He's like, let me do the Warzone to get
Right.
out of the series, and that's it. A year later, he was writing Cyclops.
Yeah.
Yep.
So and with no fanfare, just all of a sudden picking it up, and I remember reading #1, going, "This is really good. Who did? Holy crap! Greg Rucka's doing this. He went
Yeah.
back to Marvel." Didn't make a big stink about it. I'm going to go do independent books and I'm never going to touch this again or whatever.
The Fallout, his time at Marvel seemed like a far more even keel time.
And it felt like when he left,
Even
it
when he
wasn't
left,
something where he was
it was
mad. He was
super
like,
pissed.
I understand their point. I'll show up at some point. But for
Yeah.
right now, I'm going to go work on
especially
whatever
because
I
they
want.
did say like, okay, if you don't want to work on the team book, you can finish your story.
Yeah.
It's
That,
okay.
that was the big plus for him.
Versus
At
something-
least let him finish his story.
Like, because whatever happened at DC, it was just one day. You just read the comic book news headlines, like Greg Rucka's done, and he's really angry. Like,
Yeah.
what happened?
Wasn't it just after 52?
I think
Yes, it
yes,
was.
The weekly?
There
'Cause
wa-
I know
there wasn't
the
there
end of
s-
that didn't work out well.
Somebody left right before him too, or right after.
Probably. But anyway.
I mean, it was like almost like an exodus.
So Wonder Woman is a bi-weekly title.
Images looked really great.
Liam
that they
Sharp,
showed.
who I'm so glad to have back on a title. Liam
Uh-huh.
Sharp is an underrated artist to me. And Nicola Scott, who's always solid.
Yeah, and I'm even thinking about just picking up that book for the art.
Oh yeah,
no,
no,
the
Liam
art
Sharp
looked
and
great.
Nicola Scott's great too. The story is fun too. The odd number issues will tell the story of Wonder Woman, the lies in the present, with Sharp as the artist, and the even numbered issues will be Wonder Woman Year 1 set in the past with Scott as the artist. And Greg Rucka did say that those two stories are connected.
Right.
What Wonder Woman, what Diana is figuring out in the present, will tie into her.
That'll be interesting to
Yeah.
see with all of the all the bizarre. Like, oh, her origin is this now.
Yeah.
Oh, but no, her origin is kind of this. Like,
I'm
please,
just worried
can I get a
that she's going to
solid-
be a meta-human now. Because, and I only say this because in the Batman versus Superman movie, they have her listed as a meta.
Yeah,
and-
but that's also
Well, that's because
that's
you
a
just don't get
movie.
into their background.
I hope that's all it is. I hope that they just didn't realize
I mean,
what it was.
they'll take the pieces from all these different origins and
Yeah.
probably kind of meld it.
Although I have
they
a
have
feeling they're
listed
going to be revamping that anyway.
I was just
Yeah, they'll
amused
do
with, like
something.
once they did that cast picture of all the Amazonians, people were complaining that they were all they all looked too Greek and there were not enough. Like they're Greek Amazons.
Yeah, they realized that the story's in Greek, right?
The story
It is
the story takes place on an island off of Greece in a fictional.
Yeah.
the mythology is Greek. Just because the Amazon River's in South America doesn't mean that Amazonians are living in South America.
Right.
Okay, so skip to Green Lanterns,
Well, I'll skip this. There's a Trinity title written by Francis Manipul.
Interesting.
which
Oh,
also
Superman, Wonder Woman.
just
Even
they
more interesting.
they mentioned that during the panel they were raising Harley up to be part of the new Trinity, so she's the fourth in the well, kind of.
Just mentioning the fact that Harley is
Can't you just
kind
be a
of in
villain
that-
again?
Well, they're talking about Harley as that fourth pillar.
because of her book selling so well.
Yeah, of course.
We get into some of the individual ones. You have The Flash, written by Josh Williamson, as a monthly title. Dan Abnett doing Aquaman. No Andy Landing though.
Which
Oh,
they
wait,
mentioned.
don't
They
talk
did
to each
mention
other.
that there was one scene in Aquaman in New 52 when he's sitting in the fish restaurant,
Yeah, the first issue.
the first issue, that there would be some more of that kind of reference and things like that.
Good.
Yeah. Justice League. Brian Hitch is writing it. Tony Daniel and Fernando Pasarin are doing the art. It is a twice monthly title. Team consists of Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Flash, Cyborg, and the Green Lantern, Simon Baz, and Jessica Cruz, which are the Earthbound.
The new one.
Two new,
Yeah,
the
they're
two new
Earth
Earth
one.
Green Lanterns.
Because the Hal Jordan and Green Lantern core title will focus on Hal.
So we're staying with the new
Stuart Gardner as
52 team up, but we're adding two
Yeah.
lanterns instead of one.
You have Titans, consisting of Dick Grayson, Donna Troy, Arsenal, and Garth.
So
That
that,
looked
was a
good.
good image.
Dan Abnett and Brett Booth. Justice League of America, to be determined, to be determined. That's one of those titles.
I'm just seeing a lot of, listening to names, a lot of pre-New 52 writers on these books.
We'll get to that.
Well,
in a minute.
JLA, they said that they weren't even going to mention, or there was
Well,
nothing
there's
they
a-
could talk about
There's a reason for that too.
until it gets closer to
There's a
the rebirth.
There's a reason for that.
Yeah.
Teen Titans, Ben Percy, John Boy Nyers. I thought this was interesting because Damian Wayne decides that he is the leader of Teen Titans and just kind of ingratiates himself to the
I
team.
kind of like that idea though.
Because he's a little jerk. Of course, him going like, "I'm the leader now." Like it's like, look at me, I am the captain.
Some of the
Look at me.
interesting ones going later. Deathstroke by Christopher Priest.
Interesting.
I'm so psyched for
That
that.
I'm
Christopher
excited
Priest,
for.
Black Panther is amazing.
Yeah.
It's incredibly humorous. Carlo Pagulon is one of the artist lists for Deathstroke, which I really love. So I'm back on the Deathstroke train because Rob Liefeld is doing
Woo!
how can you not be after you get Christopher
Come on.
Priest?
it. Exactly.
Get Christopher Priest, and then later in the summer you get
You
Will
have,
Smith.
Will Smith. Woo!
Suicide Squad, Rob Williams with artist Philip Tan and Jim Lee. Twice monthly. Jim Lee might do an issue.
I like that face you make.
Well, when they first announced it, I'm like, you don't really think Jim Lee's going to even be able to keep up a bi-monthly
I know,
schedule?
right? That's
Even
what
if-
I thought.
The thing about Jim Lee is I love his art style, but even if they just said, "Hey Jim, just do the covers," I would.
Well, that's the Justice League title. I remember talking about it with Carr, and I said, God, I hope Brian Hitch is doing the covers at least.
Yes,
Because, like, he's
another.
I'm
guy
sure
who
he's a
can-
great writer, but it's just
He can
the
crank
the
out
draw
like one
is
issue
not-
every 6
yeah.
months. And
The
I
draw
go,
is not the thing.
I would rather have one really good piece of Jim Lee art as the cover than have an issue that he may never finish.
So there's a couple more
I
I want
can
to talk
handle
about.
that.
Super Sons, Chris Burns and Dennis Culver, writer, George Himmel as the artist, focusing on Damian Wayne and Jonathan Kent, the sons of Batman and Superman. Batman Beyond, Terry McGinnis takes over, comes back, I guess.
Yeah,
the
because
current
they
Batman
erased him.
Beyond is
They
what's his
they
face?
are
Yeah.
that it's the current Batman Beyond is the
It's
somebody.
Tim Drake, isn't it?
It's no, it's not. I think it was Damian and I mean, yeah, it was Tim Drake.
No, it's Tim.
Yeah, it was
Tim
Tim
takes
Drake.
over.
Because they erased Terry McGinnis after
Yeah.
the New 52.
Yes, and now
so that's
everybody will
their-
be happy that Terry McGinnis is coming
The
back.
book because they called it Batman Beyond and expected people to pick up the book
Yeah.
because of their love for the animated series. And when I even read it, it's like, oh, cool, Batman Beyond. Wait, who?
No.
What?
Well, in Future's
then,
End, it was Tim Drake.
It was Tim Drake too. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then what I deemed Harley Quinn hashtag the DC Recontinue is Jimmy Palmiotti, Amanda Conner, Chad Harden, and John Tim.
No, they called it the Afterbirth.
Well, yeah, they called it after. I said it was his DC Continues because that book's not going to change.
Oh,
at
that
all.
book's not changing.
So those are kind of some of the highlights for the titles. Most of these come out in June and July.
And they
Any
mentioned-
surprises for you?
I don't know if there was necessarily a surprise.
Chris Priest is my surprise.
Chris Priest was a surprise. Greg Rucka was surprised. There was some nice surprises of people that I recognized in there. But let's get to Sebastian.
Snyder and Connor were both signed to exclusive deals.
Yeah, they were kind of already.
Yeah,
They
I know.
kind of already were.
I
The,
know.
the only thing for Snyder being signed to an exclusive deal is it means that Witches isn't coming back.
Right.
Yes.
because Jock's working with him on the All-Star Batman. The first thing, to Sebastian's point, one of the things that when Rebirth was first, let me hold on to that.
Sure.
Was first announced, there was a lot of hope that DC would be able to find some new writers. One of the things that I kept reading on vendor forums or retailer forums was, if they just give us 40 books with the same people flipped around, I don't know if anyone's really going to go for that. So there's some new blood in there. But yeah, it is a lot of the same names that we've seen for the last couple of years.
Are you surprised that we're now talking rebirth after the New 52?
No.
I mean, because you were the first. I think you were the first person that said it, and you probably said it on this or one of our early ones when we first talking about the New 52, that you didn't expect it to last long. That you knew that this was going to be some kind of transition piece that wasn't going to work, and that it was going to be.
What I said was, I wouldn't be surprised if they did a meld, but they were never going to get rid of it.
Right.
There was no way to ever get rid of it, because
you
as
invest
soon
so
as
much
you
into
did,
it.
yeah, you admitted it was a mistake. In a way, if you go back and look at those initial comments, why did you renumber Detective? Why did you renumber Action Comics?
Mm-hmm.
And Dan saying, if we didn't, then this doesn't mean anything.
Right.
Which I never agreed with, because if you did number ones for everybody else, but you kept those two, you're basically telling the audience it's new and it's exciting, but we're not throwing away everything.
To me, it seems
You know,
like you would
they
have
wanted
more
to
people
throw
interested.
away everything and start over.
The
Doing
lineage with
this,
it.
When they renumbered it, going back to the legacy numbering is almost in a way of admitting the New 52 was a mistake, but it wasn't. Those numbers for those first 2 years kept DC alive.
You're right.
It took a while to get back, and everything got back to that sort of middling ground. The Tony Daniels Detective title got back to the same numbers that Tony Daniels Batman was doing. Snyder's Detective, his Batman numbers were higher than he'd ever did on Detective, because him and Greg Capullo as a team was so high.
Right.
We saw Justice League get back to the same
Well,
numbers.
we talked
saw
about
Green
it.
Lantern get back to the same numbers. We saw all that stuff.
With
It's
very
just the
few
fact-
exceptions.
Well,
Yeah.
we talked about it earlier.
pretty much
between
everything went back down to their pre-New 52 selling numbers.
Right, but the New 52. I mean, we talked about this. We've talked about this many, many times. Between you, me, and Mikey, we were buying nearly every title when it first came out.
When it first came out, between the three of us,
I think we had every one of them.
No, we had 40. It was like 44 or 45, because I
Right.
read 45 number ones.
Right.
I know my names. I started with 22. Within 3 months, I only had 11. Within a year, I only had 6.
Yeah, and now you're what are you picking up?
Now it's just Batman, Green Arrow, Starfire, which was awesome.
Mikey, what are you picking up still?
And that's it. I don't think Mike's picking up
Was
anything.
Power
Are you
Girl
picking
on
up
that
any
list?
DC?
I'm picking up Batman
Power
and
Girl title?
Justice League right now, but that'll
I got a feeling they're gonna
end.
use it.
Most
And-
likely, I won't be picking up anything.
And I'm picking up Batman with Beth's Harley and Suicide.
Yeah, so this sort of thing, it's kind of what I expected them to do, which is we're just going to do a new chapter.
Mhm.
Because again, Marvel's proven that they can be successful with number ones because people lag off.
Right.
That just it's too hard to get people to pick up number 14.
Mhm.
It's too hard as a retailer when there's not a lot of marketing. It's not like a TV series that can have commercials on the other TV series that you're seeing
Right, you just have
going, hey, everything starts over next season. You don't have seasons like that. You know, you can sit there, well, I missed the first 3 seasons of Arrow, and someone can tell you, who cares? Just watch new season 4, and people will pick up stuff in there.
Right.
You see numbers go up.
Well, that's why
With
most
comics,
people think
you don't see numbers go up anymore because people aren't looking at the content. They're not looking at the creators. They're looking at the number, and it's really
I
hard.
can jump on. It's a new
When
number.
you're
It's a
sitting
one.
there, as Marvel tried this when that second round of Marvel Now or whatever, they had those number ones in the top right
Mhm.
corner. It was still X-Men 25,
Right.
but it was a new team and a new story, so they kept putting you like new story number
arc,
1.
yeah.
Mhm.
Still wouldn't work. People
Right.
still look and go, oh no, it's number 25. Green Arrow. 3 trades that are worthless, and the number 4 trade, which is Jeff Lemire's started Jeff Lemire's run, which is incredible.
and it
and
kind of
he-
ignores everything.
It ignores everything, threw everything out.
Right.
It's so hard, still so hard, to convince people you don't need the first 3. It doesn't matter. Pick up number 4. They'll tell you everything you need to know in the first 5 pages.
Right.
He's lost his company. He's lost his friends. He's got these 2 guys that are helping him, and that's it. And then you hit the ground running from there. But
Well-
people still like, oh, but I gotta buy the first 3. No, you don't. No,
you
you
remember
don't.
when
No, you
Dark
don't.
Horse's trades of Knights of the Old Republic and Legacy when they did the Blue Harvest. Or,
Mhm.
Yeah. And they did those and they put them as separate. And then when they did their trades, they didn't put
They
those
didn't number
numbers.
them.
They didn't number them,
They
right?
just
So
gave them the story arc.
so you
names.
when you were looking at the trades,
that's
you're
why they
going
used to not
5
number-
to 7 or something.
When DC used to reprint their stuff,
Right.
and they would skip issues and stuff like that, that's why they never numbered them.
yeah.
Gotham Central, the first 4 Gotham Central trades were not Gotham Central
One,
1, 2, 3. It was, in the Line of Duty, Double Down, which was the Two-Face story, the Joker Returns, or whatever it was. And it was also they skipped issues. They would take issues out that didn't have anything to do with it, but they never numbered them because what they thought they wanted to have those on display of you just picked up, whichever one you started with, it didn't matter.
Do you think things like let's say Captain America, Amazing Spider-Man, Detective Action, they should stay with their legacy numbers no matter what?
Oh yeah, because once you get up to that number, it actually encourages that conversation. If you're sitting there at Action 897,
Right.
and someone goes, "Well, where should I start?" Start with 894. That's so and so's
Right.
first issue.
Right.
It's also
You know,
a
that
point
sort
of
of thing.
pride too. The fact that outside of comics around the rest of the world, where somebody can go like, when that issue 900 comes out, that should be a point of pride. That's 75 years of consistent
Right.
storytelling.
But if you're doing like Moon Knight, or if you're doing
Right, and that's not going to mean too much.
right, or
but
the
there's
Hawk and Dove or whatever.
Action and Detective, it's Spider-Man.
Right.
Having a consistent, because that's not just like, but it's confusing. That's also like, no, that's, come on, you guys have been around
if you're
for
doing
almost
something-
a century.
If you're doing something more like like Mighty Thor instead of just Thor, something that has a history to it,
Right.
then you should be able to keep those as your legacy titles.
Right, and to have jumped away from them before is one of those things. Like, it's kind of foolish. They've done it a few times over the years,
Yeah.
but it always sort of irks me. It's like, that seems like something to be proud of. Is that you're almost 100 years in and almost 1,000 issues? Why be afraid of that?
Right. Speaking of numbers, real quick, Ethan, Mikey, and I we discussed Batman vs Superman last week. We did our review of the show. It wasn't very favorable, but the numbers for this movie haven't really reflected.
They took a nosedive.
It did take a nosedive. I mean, it has taken quite a bump in a
80% revenue. drop
Yeah.
in a week.
but it's still. I mean, it's
Yeah.
got respectable numbers though.
Does it? 3 Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman are not equal to 1 Deadpool.
Right. Well, that's just. I was gonna say, Deadpool, as of today, is actually the highest-grossing X-Men movie of all time.
Right.
Passing Days of Future Past.
Right, and it's just one of those things like that. That has to hurt.
And it's rated R.
The movie, by all accounts, is not good. There are very few people that I know who have enjoyed the film.
Correct.
1 or 2 very vehemently have called it things like great and one of the best comic book movie ever. And I go, okay, a little bit of hyperbole. No.
Those are the DC
But that's-
hardcore loyalists that are afraid to say
It's okay.
it's a bad
I'm
movie.
being paid boatloads of money by Disney and Marvel to
what?
to have this opinion.
Kevin Smith, who I listened
He's
to.
getting paid Disney money too.
Well, listen, I listened to his podcast.
Oh, no, he apologized.
The Hollywood Babylon he did with Ralph Garman. They demolished the movie, completely trashed it. It was horrible.
Yeah, and then he saw it again.
Then he went back and saw it again,
And
and
suddenly,
he found the heart
It's
in it.
amazing.
Yeah.
It's the heart of this film. It's a really good thing. And it's also the fact that he has movies that are produced by Warner Brothers, and
Right.
he directed an episode of The Flash, and maybe he
And
does do that
somebody,
again.
Somebody went.
He also started. He also with Jeff Johns
Matt-
did the whole introduction to the new DC
Right.
cinematic
Again,
universe.
somebody went. Those first opinions are probably the most accurate opinions.
Okay,
If you're
here's
going
the
to
most
take Kevin
telling-
Smith- I mean, Matt Atchity, the head of Rotten Tomatoes. Coincidentally, at the same time, I was joking on my Facebook that literally like somebody we know had commented on the Batman Superman fan page.
Yeah.
And it was hundreds of comments of anyone and everyone who didn't like the movie was a Disney shill,
Yes.
a Marvel shill coming in, getting that Disney money to speak ill of the movie. And I was like, maybe, and it was one of the things like, for the amount of people saying that everyone is shilling, maybe the movie's just not good. And then somebody else I know was like, did you see Matt Atchity's comment? And I was like, what? No. And then I looked, and he's like, he was like, the amount of people on Twitter who called me a Disney shill getting money from Disney to give it a bad review. One, don't understand how Rotten Tomatoes or Metacritic works, and two, movie's not good.
Look, here's the thing. Here's the most telling sign of this: is in the middle of last week, not even the middle of last week, the beginning of last week, after the weekend, their first weekend, Warner Brothers put out a statement that they are spending millions of dollars to do reshoots to Suicide Squad to add more humor to it.
Because there were no jokes in the entire movie, which means that trailer was masterfully edited to make it look like there were jokes.
Yeah, you're talking about the Suicide Squad.
Yes, and there were none.
But even that trailer, the way it was edited,
was perfect.
There was more humor in that trailer than the entire 2.5 hours of Batman.
And for somebody to say
Superman.
we're reshooting this because there are no jokes means whoever sat in that editing bay putting together this trailer busted their ass to make that movie look good, which means that movie's probably not very good
Not
either.
to mention, before the movie came out, there was the directors of all these other films of the DC that were saying, we're going to have so much humor in it. It's going to be so different than what you're going to see with Batman vs. Superman.
It's going to have the best humor. It's going to have the most humor. Humor loves me, and we love humor here at DC. It's going to be great. You're going to love it.
I love the best April Fool's that joke that was out. It was all of a sudden I'm looking and I get this article. It comes up. It says officially, or Disney Lucasfilm officially announced that after Justice League 2, Zack Snyder will direct a Star Wars spin-off movie. And as soon as you click on the link, it has this big thing that comes up that says April Fool's.
Yeah, so
I was like, obviously it was an April Fool's, but it was just so hilarious that they.
So just a few numbers. Variety and I think Collider both reported that to break even, Superman Batman needs to make just over $800 million.
And they're at 683.
Yeah, but this is to break even. This is just to get their money back on marketing, producing the film, all of that good stuff.
Sure.
Which is when you need almost
paying Ben Affleck.
When you need almost $1 billion to break even, you've lost the plot of making a movie. But beyond that, it had a 55% drop in gross from Friday to Sunday, just that first weekend, which was very interesting. A lot of movies tend to have that, but not that hard. So then they had an 80% drop week to week. Mm-hmm. It only made something like $12 million on Friday this past week. The second Friday in a row when they made $80 million.
With nothing coming out.
With nothing coming out. And then even further in, I sent you guys an article, I think either today, that so they had that 80% drop, but then they overstated their initial opening weekend revenue by something like 2.7%, which dropped down that they no longer had the best opening for a movie in Warner Brothers history. They couldn't beat Harry Potter.
Yeah.
And they quietly changed their numbers without telling anybody because they wanted to ride the coattails of best opening weekend.
Well, they were hoping that would draw it over.
Right, but here's the thing.
Because look,
but they did make the statement, and they thought they had the right information before, but then by the time Monday hit, they had recalculated and like, oops, 2.7 over. And that's a lot.
Yeah. Well, nothing comes out until April 15th, which is Disney's The Jungle Book.
Right.
So they should have had 2 or 3 major weeks, and it doesn't look like they're going to be able to beat whatever little movie's coming out next week.
And then China, their sales in China completely stagnated after the first weekend. Nobody went back to go see it overseas.
Yeah.
So it looks like they may be stuck. They may hit that $800 million. It may take them an extra bit of time to get there. They'll probably break even, but that is not good because you want to profit on your movie.
With these movies, when you're seeing, Avengers doing when you're seeing Avengers doing $1 billion, Star Wars doing $1 billion, $2 billion, whatever.
And that's just in the course of Star Wars and Avengers made that money really fast,
and
they also didn't spend $800 million.
Right, and the other thing was that
even if, let's say Batman Superman does make $1 billion, then somebody goes, so you only profited $200 million on an $800 million movie.
Producers aren't going to get behind that too much.
That's going to make a lot of
Do you think
unhappy.
It'll make a difference to Zack Snyder directing the next?
He got paid already. I'm sure his pride takes a hit, and we've.
I don't care about his pride. I'm talking about him directing Justice League.
It depends on how far in. They're saying April 14th is when they're supposed to be starting.
Yes, but here's
we're going to hear it in the next couple days.
You got to remember, the Snyders as a team, are producing and writing and directing. They Warner Brothers hitched their whole universe to the two of them.
Yes.
She's doing. Zack Snyder's wife is doing Wonder Woman. He's doing Justice League.
Yeah.
They're just going to keep going.
Do you think it's?
We'll find out in the next couple. We'll find out soon. If shooting doesn't start April 14th like they're supposed to be slated to, then you know something is happening.
Okay. Do you think that there's a lot of people that are saying that, you know what, this is the first signs of fatigue in the superhero world?
No, it's
new movies.
Suicide Squad having to do reshoots before their movie comes out in 2 months. That's the canary in the coal mine for at least somebody recognizing something has gone wrong.
Yes.
No, it's it.
Man of Steel should have been
Man of
Steel should have been the first sign, but it wasn't.
Fatigue is when a good movie can't make what it should be making.
Right.
Right.
Because if it was fatigue, why is Deadpool going to make $1 billion?
Yeah. That's true.
It's not fatigue. It's
not
just
fatigue.
it's a bad movie.
And then, you know, you're talking a movie.
It's a bad movie that's a year late.
Right. You're also talking Deadpool is
Because
a
of
rated
reshoots.
R film
That has made
that
more money
should
than-
never have. You know, most rated R films do not do what
This isn't the 90s.
Deadpool's
This
doing.
isn't the late 80s, early 90s anymore. Rated R movies do not make that much money. Deadpool is making that much money. And again, the fact that Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman combined could not defeat Deadpool in a week
Yeah.
is very, very telling.
Chris, I know you had reasons why you didn't go see the movie, but
Yeah, I can't sit still for 2.5
Right.
fucking hours.
do you, after the way it's been doing and just what you're hearing, not even hearing all the spoilers, does it make you less wanting to go see it and just wait till it comes out on DVD or something?
There's a part of me that
Or when I stupidly buy it?
just because you'll buy it.
Shame
No,
on
I
you.
mean it's
Shame
still
on
I'm
you,
still
by the
kind
way.
of in the same vein of wanting to see it just to see it, even though I know it's going to be not that great.
Yeah.
I don't. It's
It's
I've
the
always
idea of
admitted,
seeing Batman, Superman
Am
on
I
the screen
am I
together.
sitting here pissed off that I can't go see it because, you know, I don't know if I can sit still for 2.5 hours without my arm exploding?
Yeah.
No. If you know, after the 15th, when someone says, "Well, you're not going to
Very
go see the,"
convenient that your back went out.
Yeah.
But it's
around
also-
the
it's
release
also
of
like-
Superman
but if I'm
Batman.
sitting there on the 15th going, I can't go see Jungle Book because I feel bad, then I'm going to be ticked. That's the difference.
It's not like
that's a
Civil
movie I
War
really
where
wanna
you would
see.
force yourself to go sit through it.
Civil War. I'll pirate it and bring it home. I don't care. I'm seeing that damn movie.
You buy a ticket, but then
If I'm still
pirate it.
screwed up by Civil War, this is bad.
But
I'll
you know
take
what
the
I'm.
problems
But
that
you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, there's nothing that's making me go, oh, I should definitely
I
run
mean,
out and see this
if
right now.
if this was December and Rogue One was coming out, hell or high water, you would be there sitting in the theater.
Yeah.
It's not like.
No, there's nothing here that's gonna,
And it's not like it's not the fact that it's Batman and Superman being on the screen at the same time. That right there is
Well-
appealing itself. If it's done
it
right.
would. Yeah. See, this is the when I've explained what our first misgivings were.
Mm-hmm.
When I articulate what I said the very first time that they said Man of Steel 2 is not Man of Steel 2, it's Batman versus Superman. Because before that, when we thought Justice League was going to be right there,
Right.
I remember sitting here, well, actually sitting in the dining room, and saying my fear for Justice League then is it's going to be 2.5 hours of 20-minute origins
Mm-hmm.
and then a 15-minute fight with Darkseid.
Yep.
Because they're not going to be able to establish these characters as just throw you in and let you figure it out. When they said Batman versus Superman and Wonder Woman's in it, DC, Warner Brothers, Zack Snyder, the producers of this film, are relying on a cognizant consciousness of who these characters are. The three
Right.
of the four most recognizable fictional characters in the entire world.
Mm-hmm.
They're symbols just of alone.
Yes.
You're bringing your experience as an audience with Batman, with Wonder Woman, into that film.
Uh-huh.
They're not giving you what this Batman is.
Right.
They're not giving you what this Wonder Woman is. They've given you what this Superman is, which, whether you like it or not, they're establishing a Superman character. You know his history
Yes.
in terms of what they're doing with the cinematic universe. So they didn't earn this film.
Right.
It's Batman and Superman on the screen, and when I first said to someone else, they're like, yeah, I kind of wondered why I didn't... We've seen Batman fight Superman before.
Mm-hmm.
We read it in Dark Knight Returns. You have established characters. Even Dark Knight Returns, which only has a few pages of Superman's character before it gets to the point where him and Bruce are punching each other.
Right.
You've given enough of what this Batman is, what this Superman is, in Frank Miller's vision, that battle means something.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're on very opposite sides of what's going on. Marvel's reaction to Iron Man making a whole bunch of money was, okay, let's do this 4 more times.
Yes.
Let's do Thor. Let's do Hulk. Let's do Cap. Let's do Iron Man
let's
2.
get these
And
characters
then,
out there.
can you imagine when people go, oh my God, they're doing Avengers? DC's reaction to Man of Steel making money is, all right, get Batman, Cyborg, Wonder Woman, everyone to the set. Let's go. Let's
gotta-
shoot the movie.
You gotta
Come
kill
on.
them with instant messaging.
Get in here, because they just, whatever reasoning, and it totally feels like the reasoning is someone in
We got to
in
catch
an
up to
office.
Marvel.
It wasn't catch up. It was, let's not do what Marvel did. We don't want to be accused of copying.
See what
We
I
don't want
said.
to get accused of copying, so let's not do that. But that's the right thing to do. No, let's not do that. If they would have swallowed their pride 3 years ago when Man of Steel came out and said, okay, you know what? Let's do the Wonder Woman movie first. Because we don't want to do Batman right now. We're only 2 years removed from Dark Knight Rises. Let's do Wonder Woman. Let's do a Cyborg movie. Let's show people a character
Everybody
that
knows
nobody
Batman.
knows.
Let's wait on him.
And we'll do Batman last and have Batman form the Justice League in the next film. You would have had a much more successful franchise. Instead, you jump the gun, you put this together. And who knows where you're going to go from here?
Well, see, what I told these guys last week was that it felt to me they should have done. You have Man of Steel, right? This movie should have been a Batman film. And during the Batman film, at some point, he's in the Batcave. He looks up on the screen and he's seeing the events that took place in Metropolis with Superman and Zod. And then maybe
Which is, of course, across the river from...
yeah. Then at some other point he sees another thing. So he's
I
starting
didn't
to
know it was
formulate.
so easy to go from Los Angeles to New York. I
Oh,
just
dude.
had to cross that river called the
Well, if you're going
American
from the DCU, that's New York to Chicago.
Look,
Midwest. Yes, New York to
Metropolis is
Chicago.
kind of
when I
basic
saw
stuff.
that in the movie, I didn't know if I was having one of those moments like, that's the one thing that's
Did I have
bothering
a
me.
stroke?
Because when Lex Luthor is standing on top of LexCorp and he's looking out over the bay and he sees the bat symbol, in the sky of Gotham, I'm like, no. I wanted to stand up and just scream at the screen because it was just.
Don't you
Excuse
know?
me,
Chris,
Are you
sirs, this is
fucking
incorrect.
kidding
Don't
me?
you know, Rich? You're not a real DC fan if you don't know that Metropolis and
Gotham are across
Gotham
the
are
river.
only separated by 10 miles.
Oh God!
Don't you know that you're not a real DC fan? Don't you know that Batman
Have
kills everyone?
they ever put those fictional cities on a map?
It's Chicago, New
Because
York.
there's
They're
gotta
never-
be.
they're
It's
not-
gotta-
That's always been their
It's like
analogy.
Chicago, New York, right?
Yeah,
That's how it's
but
always
have
been.
they really said that Metropolis is in
Yes,
the
they're not. They're
Midwest?
not. They are not anywhere.
Oh, I
near
knew they
each
wouldn't be
other.
anywhere near each other. I was just always wondering. 'Cause, yeah, the analogies
The
have
only
always
time
been
that I
there.
know
The
that
thing
it's
is
been
now.
really different is Smallville put Metropolis in Kansas,
Right.
Which was their big sort of.
Yeah.
We're not Kansas, but they've sort of done that like that hop,
But
skip,
that's
and
me,
a jump.
a Midwestern city.
Well,
yeah,
no,
this
they
makes
said
sense to me.
Metropolis was like the downtown of Kansas, basically,
Yeah.
or the city of Kansas. That
It's Kansas City.
Well, I mean, like it was
Well,
the
Kansas City's in
downtown.
Missouri.
That's true.
Well, yeah,
That's true.
But
Kansas
it's
City's not in Kansas.
Look, the fact that somebody
Neither
went,
was this
the
movie.
fact that everyone went, it's too much destruction, and I don't like my superheroes murdering people left and right, and they went, okay, we'll take that into consideration, and then you have a movie that the Red Letter Media coined as Murder Man versus Captain Hypocrite.
I'm telling you what, I lost count of how many times they actually murdered somebody or killed somebody.
And it's just one of those things like,
Well, if you just count Martha and Thomas Wayne over and over
and
again,
then
you're up to like 80.
and then to watch
I know it's a spoiler, but
And-
to get them to
Batman's
fight
parents
because
die.
because of your mother, because we take your,
Spoiler.
I take your mom because her name's, and then we stop fighting
I'll
because
save your
your
mom
mom's
because
named
her name's
Martha,
Martha.
and my mom's name's Martha.
oh my goodness.
We're friends now.
It's like that picture I posted on Facebook.
They also called Doomsday the
It's the-
walking discotheque because the EDM music and his lightning
Yeah.
followed him everywhere throughout the
Yeah.
city.
The one weird
the
thing,
meme that I saw of Step Brothers, where it was like we're friends, now we're best friends.
the,
I was like, that's
the
it.
one thing that I think is
we
very
just become
odd
best friends?
in the discourse after is no one's talked about Lex.
Yeah.
I haven't
Oh,
heard
we've
any-
talked
Have you
about
even
it.
heard about
I've-
the end of it? Have you
I-
been spoiled?
No,
Wow, I'm surprised about that.
I don't let people talk about it. They just talk about how bad.
Well,
it is.
Well, I don't think
have
people
heard-
care enough to talk
heard
about this
endless-
movie. That's why.
Yeah, no.
Well,
a
that's
lot
the
of-
thing.
That's the one
For
that-
as much as this is all anyone's talked about for the week. Everyone who's come in the shop is like, "Did you see it? What do you think? This, whether it's negative or positive, at the very least, the buzz for the last week has been to talk about Batman, Superman."
But no spoilers.
No,
Well,
I never
that's the
got to
thing
that
is
bit.
then-
they're only talking about whether it was good or bad.
And then-
Nobody's like, "Oh, did you see that part when Superman
No.
did
Well, no,
this?"
but that's
or
still
that?
you still didn't get that with some of the. I mean, it's
on the internet, everyone went, "Oh, I guess we'll just wait for whatever the next." We got another movie coming out. What was that? Batman Superman came out. What?
Like I said, it should have been.
Well, I saw a lot of that on. It was just like so much of it on there.
There
was
should have been at
just-
least one more Batman, one more Superman movie
The
before
only
you have this one.
Here's the amazing thing with as many people that follow like Twitter, like the only time people talked about Batman Superman was Thursday night, and it was all, well, that was what I expected, and nobody said anything
See, what-
about the movie ever
the
again.
the dialogue that I kept seeing was about people's reaction.
Oh, and
Yes.
and
To
you're
the
a shill
film.
if you hated it.
That's the thing. That's what the interesting thing to me is the conversation starting Friday all the way through the week has been so many people talking about other people's reaction to the film, and that you didn't get it, or
You're
I
not
don't
a real
understand
comic-
why you think it's good. I don't understand why you think it's bad. That was the interesting thing to me. Is so much of the conversation had nothing to do with the movie.
Right.
It had to do with people's reaction to the movie and other people not being able to handle the fact that someone didn't like it. And this is
He
the
is a
dude.
genius, according to the 10 people who liked that movie. I've learned Zack Snyder is a genius, and that I am not a comic book fan, nor have ever read comic books before.
I had somebody do that to me.
And that was the most interesting.
Well, the fun thing is when they tell you, like, well, don't you know that Superman kills people before? And it's, yeah, I know all the instances where he's killed people.
The like 10 instances where
Yeah.
he's ever had to kill anyone in
And
70
most of the
years.
time, you don't understand. It was like, well, they did that thing with the Phantom Zone. I'm like, he didn't kill them. He sent them. You
So
realize going to the Phantom Zone
It's like
doesn't
going to
mean-
prison.
Okay,
Yeah.
look.
It's like the first Batman movie where where Batman says, "I don't, I'm not going to kill you, but I also don't have to save you."
And
Right.
I always thought that was a very interesting
sure, it's one of those
dichotomy because
philosophical discussions.
you're
that
sitting
you
there
can have.
every time you see it and you think, comic book Batman would have saved him.
Yes.
Wouldn't have allowed him to die. But the type of universe that Nolan was creating.
Mm-hmm.
It was a different Batman. It
But
was
he
someone who
didn't
wouldn't
go against the
actively,
core
exactly.
morals.
I wouldn't actively kill you, but I'm not above letting you die.
Right.
And then
If I feel it's the right
And then in
choice.
Batman Superman, you have Batman gunning people down with machine guns and then blowing up people
All I have to say is this: if
and stabbing. My favorite scene especially from when he stabs that guy in the chest with the battering, that he's like in a 10-person fight, and Batman gets stabbed in the arm, and in a fit of rage pulls out a battering and stabs the man right in the chest.
dude, he gets into
then
a
he gets
fight.
back
He
up
gets
there.
into a fight where they have guns and they're shooting him, and completely shooting him all over, even inches away from his cowl, and it's all bulletproof. He gets stabbed with a knife, and the knife goes through his suit, and that's when he gets hurt.
And then he pulls out a battering.
Wait,
But then,
and
but
stabs
then
Well,
he
it's a different-
fights
it's a
for
different
another
sense of
10
energy.
minutes. Like
All he
nothing
does
happened.
is go, oh, okay, yeah, here you go. Okay,
and
now I'm
then,
gonna get back
and then
fighting.
he blows.
and then they get back up
And then he sets a man on fire in front of Martha Kent.
Yes.
And she cracks a joke like, "I knew you were my son's friend."
Yeah.
And I could
Oh,
not.
I have to go see this movie.
I
now.
could not stop. Like,
I almost want to go and watch
I'm
you
gonna
watching
say
it.
I have not seen the whole movie, but I've seen many scenes that have finally been put out for marketing purposes, which have not worked. But the moment I saw Batman blow a man up and he's on fire and he saves Martha Kent and she's like, I knew you were my son's friend because of the cape, glossing over the man on fire
Yeah.
2 feet away from them.
The man
I
on fire.
I could not stop laughing, and I'm sure there's somebody on the internet who's like, "You didn't understand, man.
Look.
Batman burns people alive all the time. Don't you read comics?"
You just
Movie
reminded
Firefly
me of
is.
something, because if a movie has to put out a deleted scene the week that it comes out in theater to
explain
explain
the
something,
plot.
yes, that tells me the movie's in trouble.
But the problem with that deleted
Sucker
scene,
Sucker
Punch.
Punch.
Which
But
still,
even Sucker Punch, they did
still-
not have to put out a trailer.
bullshit.
deleted scene.
Every single person that likes that movie,
Loves
and when I
Man of-
tell them,
loves
when
Batman,
I tell
Superman.
them, the movie makes no sense because you go down 2 levels and you only go back up 1 when it ends. Everyone tells, no, the deleted scene brings you all the way back up there. It's a deleted scene.
It doesn't count.
It doesn't
I
count.
know.
As it's released in the theater, Sucker Punch makes no sense from a banal, basic, flatline story level.
But if you've only seen the
And
director's
and
cut,
if you
put that
see-
in there.
Well, if you see the director's cut, then it makes sense. No.
Here's what
Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, as an extended version, is much, much better.
Oh, completely.
The theatrical cut makes sense.
Yes.
The
No,
only
I
question you
agree.
have is, where the hell did they get those daggers?
Right.
But that's not
Right.
that's not crucial to the plot. The deleted scene in fucking Sucker Punch is crucial to the plot as it ends.
Yes.
And that's everyone's argument as to why that movie is okay.
Well, I've also learned this past week that Sucker Punch is also a film of genius. Again, something I did not know or was aware of.
Oh, it's genius. Hey, let's get 5 hot chicks and put them in a movie.
Okay,
where
look, I want to wrap this up because we are running really long. The one thing I have to say is, and this is how we're going to end it: if Superman, if a villain is holding a gun to Lois Lane's head, and Superman comes in the room, how is he going to resolve the problem?
Melting the gun.
What's he going to do? Melt the gun? Or
whatever it takes to stop it without killing it.
He can also move so fast. He could just put his hand over the barrel and take the just give me this.
Would Superman?
He can use his chill breath.
Use chill breath.
Heat vision. The gun. He can move quickly to do it, and of course, the easiest, fly the planet backwards and go back in time.
If you're done.
Would he ever grab the guy going at supersonic speed and go through a wall?
Killing the man, yeah.
Killing the man.
No.
Well, it depends. If a man
is
if
it's a meta,
yeah,
let's
that's
say.
to say.
If it's a meta or something like that,
if he knows that person can survive the wall, maybe. And I don't even think he'd do that because he would just the guy would just take Lois with him.
Right.
The point, Zack Snyder telling me that I don't understand Superman because I don't like his movie.
Right.
Is the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
I know.
You're not a comic book fan, Chris. Not a comic fan.
Yeah.
You don't read comic books, man.
I got a storage place. I'm sorry. I have 2 storage places.
You're a fake nerd
I got
girl,
2
Chris.
storage places, a closet, and the corner of my dining room that says otherwise.
Look, just because you work at a comic book store and you read comics and stuff, you're not a comic book fan.
Just because I have 86 long boxes of comics.
You're buying those comics for show.
Yeah,
just
that's
for
what
show.
it is.
So on that note,
My
we're going
1500
to...
trades. No, not that note. I want fucking Rebels Season 2 either.
Okay.
Oh my god.
That was good.
It was amazing because it gave me all the feels, and that's the only one I left on the DVR. I'm like, I have to watch this again.
I did too.
Because
I've actually watched
so
it twice.
much
I watched it at work on my iPad the next day.
and it's the Rebel report afterward. Dave Filoni does say that Rogue One he said that moment that's coming up between this and Rogue One. So
there's one thing about
you might
this.
be right with the X-Wing thing.
There is one thing I didn't like about this. I didn't like
That was only an hour.
No, well and I didn't like the Inquisitor helicopters.
That's such a nitpicky point.
I know it is.
Eric brought up the same thing.
That's a design thing.
That was the only thing that bugged me in the whole thing.
Yeah, it's out of place, but it's also like I get that. I've seen weirder from expanded universe Star Wars.
It
and
was
even regular
because
Star Wars.
Eric said the same thing. It's like I learned 2 things. I remember what the first thing was. The other one is you can use lightsaber blades as helicopters.
Yeah.
And
they
I said
generate lift. And
if they generate heat, they could ostensibly generate lift.
Yes. No,
but also at the same time, they have helicopters with a laser sword that somehow ends and also compares a kid putting his arm out and closing his eyes and moving a 600-pound stone out of the way so he can get into a temple where a consciousness has existed for thousands of years.
No,
but they're helicopters.
If you
it's so stupid.
if you shape the lightsaber blade to create aerodynamic lift, like on a helicopter blade, sure.
I realized when I was watching it, I was nitpicking the one little thing.
Hey, no one can shoot your rotor blades though. They just have to get the dead center of the rotor to knock you out of the sky.
But I was like, okay, that's the one thing.
And there's the possibility that your bullets go back to you.
Exactly.
It's more. It's the more.
Gotta be good. Gotta be good with that shot.
Spoiler. The more disappointing thing to me is that they got rid of the Inquisitor so quickly. You have a brand new one and the other 2, and they're all gone.
Well, the Sarah Michelle Gellar one they got, I thought she was going to last for a couple seasons.
I just it looks like we're getting an Inquisitor every
season. Yeah.
It's like how many people are left that still can use the Force? I mean, I thought this was supposed to be special in this timeline.
Yeah.
Well,
I thought this timeline was when people start to forget about the Force.
Every time one dies, Darth Vader goes find another one.
Well, the one that died was the 8th brother, I think, and then you had the 7th sister, and I don't forget what the.
We've already gone through 4.
And the 6th cousin, and the
father's brothers, nephews, former.
We've already seen. 4,
nice
5,
pull there.
Thank you.
6, 7. Have we seen 8 characters use the Force already in 2 seasons?
We've seen
you have Kanan,
4 Inquisitors.
Ezra. You've seen 4 Inquisitors: Kanan, Ezra, Darth Vader,
and
Seven, right?
Ahsoka.
Yes.
So 8. That's 8.
And Maul.
There's
and Maul.
So 9. So you've got a whole bunch of people that are still around that can use the Force.
We also found
But
out.
supposedly, killing Kenobi on the Death Star ends the line forever.
Darth Vader's been killing the Inquisitors failed. You know, they probably die off screen.
I did like
stabbed.
the fact that they mentioned that the Inquisitors and Darth Vader have been, basically purging the universe.
Yeah, and I suppose the Inquisitors are more Force sensitive. They're not straight up Sith or Jedi.
Well, they can't be Sith, as they explained in that.
I
In the Rebel Recon,
I
the
can al-
Sith
I
has
can
to be
also s-
trained,
yes.
and there's only ever 2 of them.
It's
There's only
like-
2 that
it's
can
like-
claim the
I can
Yeah.
title.
also see Darth Vader pulling a dirty double cross and all right, you've killed. Thank you. Like the moment Obi-Wan Kenobi's dead, just like, all right, guys, team meeting, and then just gassing all of them or killing them all
yeah.
with a lightsaber.
See that's fair. Or that, or by the end of Rebels, they're all
They're all
gone.
dead. Yeah.
Well, you keep getting rid of them all every season, yeah. So next season we'll have 6 Inquisitors. Oh no! If it's times 3, so 1 times 3 is 3. So we have 9 Inquisitors next season.
Did you like, spoiler alert, did you like Kanan losing his eyes? I thought that was
bizarre,
I
yeah.
thought that was an interesting twist.
Well, as Mike said, I thought someone would lose an appendage because we're in the right spot for it.
Yeah.
But losing the eye was an interesting thing.
Something
We couldn't even get that action figure out with his eyes before he loses
I
his
know.
eyes in the show. I'm like, come on, man.
Well, Robert Kirkman tweeted out, he said, if you're a Star Wars fan and not watching Rebels, you're not really a Star Wars fan.
Oh my god, it's so good.
That is-
Someone who found Clone Wars so uneven, highs but and some lows that I could not stop screaming about. I love this series.
This series is amazing, and we are.
I felt
we're 3 years from
I
the
felt
Battle
an
of Yavin,
emotional connection to the end of that episode.
and for somebody that hated Ahsoka so much,
I never hated Ahsoka.
well, that's Travis, but Travis
Travis
hated
hated everything.
Travis hated it, but
I
think
never
he likes
hated
her.
Ahsoka. I just hated the
Sky
snips
guy
and
and-
Sky
yeah.
guy. They made Ahsoka into a great character. That's what Ahsoka is. One of those characters that is so important in terms of the Star Wars universe because her fandom organically grew
Yes,
as she organically grew to be the character that walked away from the Order.
It's a character
get-
who earned it.
Yeah, to get the Ahsoka Lives hashtag when they canceled the series.
yeah.
To make sure that episode... oh, hold on.
You're back.
Sorry. Well, every cough sends my shoulder into hell. But she earned her fandom, and they've done right by her in this season. That whatever episode
Do you
was a
think
couple
she's
of weeks ago where she lights when the Inquisitors are running after Kanan or running after Ezra, and the door opens and she's there
Yeah.
with the sabers. You're like, yep, okay, this is.
Well, her and Vader have had the coolest two.
Yeah, so they
entrances.
It's just been. This show has connected in a way that Clone Wars never did for me.
Do you think we've seen the last of Ahsoka?
And I don't think you've seen the last of it, but I think you've seen the last of her for a while.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think she's a character that could show up in a live action movie?
I don't believe so.
No?
I don't think she's going to be the connecting character. I think if they pick anybody, it'll be Ezra.
Yeah. I could see that.
But I just at this point, I think you use Ahsoka the way that you've been using her.
Yeah.
In she's in these television series, and we're getting a novel.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad to get the novel.
I'm excited for the novel.
Yeah.
I like that team, and I'm sure if Lucasfilm is smart right now, I'd be looking at Marvel going, do the miniseries now.
Yeah.
Do the miniseries of some adventure after she left the Order, because there's a whole bunch of time that you have.
Uh-huh.
The novel is supposedly going to cover that time to get to the point when she gets to the fulcrum, but it doesn't mean it's going to tell the whole story.
Yeah.
She's got years between those two pieces.
She's at what? 12 years? 13 years? No,
Well, yeah,
it's 14. Well,
She would have.
yeah, it's 14 years.
Yeah, basically 14 years. Who knows when she starts? I mean, she could have started the Resistance 4 years before that.
Right.
Or been a part of it in some way, shape, or form. There's so much more to tell now that you've revealed that she's alive at the beginning of Rebels.
Uh-huh.
And I think we'll see those pieces, but you
That
don't want
moment
to
with
give
her.
it too much, but enough. I even like Maul.
Maul
Maul was so good.
Yeah.
That voice acting was brilliant when he was with Ezra before.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I knew who it was immediately.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because they didn't really hide the fact that you could see his tattoos in the
Right.
shadows, so you kind of knew it was him. And they never they never actually killed him.
The manipulation he used was...
And it's not even manipulation. I mean, that's the thing.
And there's a great evolution to his character with it.
Yeah, and he wants the same thing, but for different reasons.
Yes.
You know, it's a bounty hunter sort of thing. It's
It,
I'm
it,
sure
in
he
a
would have
way,
no
it reminds you
problem
of
trying-
Ventress, but not.
It would just be you'd have no problem killing Vader. He'd have no problem taking down the Empire simply because to him the Empire is an extension of the Republic because that's the government that took over.
Right.
The Emperor's the head of it. The Emperor screwed him over. You know, all of that stuff. Maul's story is also very interesting.
Yeah. Well, even
no,
even
it
with
was
the
just-
Sith, the apprentice is supposed to at some point.
Yeah, but he
You
can
know-
no longer be a Sith because
Right.
he's basically thrown out. No, it was really really good.
Yeah, it was good. The whole part with Ahsoka when the crack of the Vader mask.
Yeah,
and-
when she's alone with him and everything.
which now which I'm wondering if they're going to make the new mask look more closer to the movie now,
maybe I don't know.
because they
I just
went,
want to know the story of why his eyes lose all that red and orange color by the time you get to the end of episode 6. They got his mask. Like, hey, weren't your eyes like orange and red and crazy?
Of all the things to digitally add to Star Wars,
Yeah.
he thought Ewoks blinking was far more important than
So
changing,
disturbing.
Than
the
changing
blinking
Darth Vader's
Ewoks.
eyes.
Well,
This
you
is
could
so
you
disturbing.
could say that he's already turned back to the light, so he would
Sure.
have lost the eye. but
Sure,
yeah.
you could. Yeah,
It's just
they
kind of funny
faded
when I
away
saw it. When I was
in
like, oh, he's still got
moments.
the eyes.
Did you think
It's,
was there part of you when you saw him Vader leaving
His
the
retinas got
temple
burned from the lava
and you
planet.
don't see
Yeah.
Ahsoka? Is there part of you that thought they're still good in him, and maybe he didn't?
well, there
kill her?
obviously is still good in him. It's a hard thing. 'Cause I didn't think he didn't kill her simply because I don't think they're going to kill that character that way.
Right.
I think if they're going to kill Ahsoka, they're going to kill Ahsoka on screen. You're going to
Yes.
see someone put a saber through her chest.
Yeah.
It's.
But then again,
We obviously.
but then
we
again, with the
obviously
little
know
girl
that, well, that's the
fans,
thing.
because
We obviously know that Anakin has no trouble murdering children.
right. Because
So-
Arabella's been watching the show with me because she loves Ahsoka, and with Ahsoka in it, and I didn't pressure her to watch it because I had a feeling Ahsoka, just by the Twilight of the Apprentice, the name of it, I had a feeling Ahsoka might die in it, and I didn't know how she would react to seeing Ahsoka die. And when they didn't show her, I thought that leaves the interpretation that maybe she's still alive for those little fans that the
The
little
only
girl
person
fans.
who can finish her story is Anakin, and I can see that being series finale.
For her, I could see that being her finale.
Yeah, you could leave it into it. You could leave it to her interpretation, but no,
Well, I think
that's a
that-
character who's important because again, they
You can
know
take,
who watches their show.
You can
Yes.
take the pieces of this episode and say the finale is Kanan and Ahsoka versus Vader and Ezra,
Oh yeah,
and Ezra kills her. That it's not even Anakin. That it's
I
Ezra
could see
who
that.
ends his life.
I could see
Because
that.
look how much he looked up to Ahsoka through this season.
Yeah,
Go back and think of all the pieces there. The fact that the odd thing to me as you're watching it is they're turning to Ezra as one of their leaders. He's the one coming up with all these plans.
mm-hmm.
This is like a 10-year-old kid.
yeah.
And that's where you see the pieces in this. We're like, we kind of went too far with you to the point where we tell you to stay here and you just walk off with some guy who's manipulating you and ends up being a former Sith Lord who Obi-Wan cut in half.
Not even that. When they tell him to stay and he goes off on a mission by himself.
That's what I mean. So it's just, and for me,
He's got that
if it
Anakin
was,
streak in him.
exactly,
He
if
does.
if it was Clone Wars, I'd be like, this is stupid. Whatever.
Yeah.
So
In
watching
a way, he is
this,
like Jason.
Yeah, watching this.
Of course, we did also find out with Rebels Recon that the son of Dathomir, the Dark Horse comic book of Darth Maul, is canon.
It's not officially canon.
Not officially canon, but
He
there's
puts
parts
in
of
there
it.
that he just basically said the story that they did that story purposely by not giving him an ending.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's a ton of stories that can still be canon.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah,
let's
that's
just put
true.
there, like, if they wanted to say that John Jackson Miller's Obi-Wan story is canon, boom, you could put it in there.
Oh yeah.
Any of those
And
comics in
Marvel
between.
can just reprint it if they wanted to.
Yeah.
They have all the rights now.
but
yeah.
but even then, because it's such a standalone story that
Yeah.
it can be.
Yeah, and it's nothing. The stuff that isn't canon will all be the post Jedi stuff because it doesn't contradict anything.
Right.
When you're sitting there and you're writing the first Darth Maul special, which takes place before Episode 1, that can easily still be canon because that writer knew, well, he has to survive to get to Episode 1. So there's a lot of stories like that
Yeah.
that you're not tripping over anything. And so those stories are in the kind of this fuzzy thing where I said they're the non-canonical canon because it doesn't matter. It's not official,
Right.
but there's nothing in it that's going to tell you, oh, this didn't happen. If you're reading, from what we know from Episode 7, if you're reading Kevin J. Anderson's Jedi Academy trilogy, you're going, well, none of this happened.
Yeah.
And that's connected to stuff that they did in the comics.
I mean, the courtship of Princess Leia could kinda.
You could probably put that in there. There's still stuff that's after. Darksaber probably doesn't have anything that's.
I mean,
that
until you
would-
get up to Leia having the kids.
It's everything that deals with Han, Leia, and Luke's family.
right.
That looks like it would probably be out of canon. If you remove Jason and Jaina from the Thrawn trilogy,
And just had it as
you could
Ben.
probably do it as a canon.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing there that is immediately contradicting what you have already said if you decide the Imperial Remnant was still a threat.
Unless you're
If you take-
writing out Mara
If you take the
Jade.
idea that Chuck Wendig's Aftermath book and what we see in the visual dictionary is that the Empire succumbed very quickly
Yeah.
and ran away very quickly, within a few years was pushed to the other side of the outer rim and told, go off into your space and that's it, don't bother us anymore, sort of thing, because that worked out great.
I know, right?
Then those stories wouldn't be, but again, it's this sort of thing like,
But you could still have some of the remnants,
yeah,
you
it's
know,
just
like
the-
rebelling,
there's not,
like a Thrawn type
yeah,
character.
there's not anything that you
'Cause
really,
they are
there's so
some-
little that you can throw out completely.
I mean, they've rumored that they're going to have Thrawn come back in Rebels next season.
Boy.
All right, so yeah, on that note, we're going to wrap things up because we are running over.
Hey, we got Star Wars to talk about, bro.
I know.
I know all you care about is watching. Walking
Ethan
Dead.
wants to get to The Walking Dead. He's
We gotta record another podcast.
he's
Oh,
dying
yeah,
to see
you guys
that.
gotta do a podcast. That was a good-
90-minute episode, and we gotta record
All right,
a
so on that note, we're going to wrap things up so we can get to The Walking Dead. So, for Mikey, Chris,
Brains.
Sebastian, Ethan, I'm saying make sure you check us out at facebook.com/nerdables.
Facebook.brains.com.
We're also on Twitter at Nerdables Show.
Facebook.brains.com. You do not want to see what's on that website.
And check us out at nerdables.com. And remember always, please leave us a message if you like what you're hearing or you don't like what you're hearing.
Brains.
We'll see you next time.
Leave brains.
Oh